Hi, Devashish.
Hello. Fair. So let's get started. We were discussing monitoring, and here we had left yesterday. We're talking about quality monitoring. We talked about a couple of techniques, control chart, histogram, check sheet. This is precisely where we left. So moving on with others, couple of other tools in quality. One of them, Net Promoter Score, NPS. Meshali have done that already. Yeah. So before I tell you something, anybody use this matrix? Would love to hear. What is the use of NPS? Net Promoter Score. Haven't used? Okay, no problem. I'll take it. I would say NPS is a matrix to measure customer loyalty. It's a very commonly used matrix, by the way. So I'll explain how to calculate. The way you calculate NPS is, um, so what I would do is I would do a survey of my customers. Let's say I arrange a number of customers, say 100 customers who are ready to provide feedback. Now, what I would ask them to do is, I would ask them to rate us on a scale of 0 to 10. And rate on what? Rate on how likely they are to recommend our product services to somebody else. Okay, whatever product service we are offering, we ask them to rate us on that. Okay, just give me a sec. Yeah, sorry for the interruption. So what I was saying is, I would ask these customers to rate us on a scale of 0 to 10 on how likely they are to recommend our product services to someone else. And we would classify the scores. Say those who gave us a rating of say 9 or 10, we call them as promoters. Okay. And those who gave us a rating of 7 or 8, let's call them as passives. And those that give us a score anything in the range of 0 to 6, so these I will call them as detractors. All right, so now let's say out of 100 people, let's say, yeah, out of 100 people, say 45% gave us, so 45 out of 100 customers, which is like 45%, they rated us 9 or 10. And say there were 30% who gave us a rating of 7 or 8, and the remaining 25% gave us this rating 0 to 6. All right. Now we would calculate NPS. Is the formula: percentage promoters minus percentage detractors. So in my example, like 45% gave this, 9, 10, and 25 were detractors. So that's like a 20. This is what is NPS. This is how you calculate NPS. So it is a matrix to measure customer loyalty. It actually speaks about that. Very commonly used matrix. I hope that's understood. If you have a question, let me know. Another tool, A/B testing. Anybody come across A/B testing? Okay. The use of A/B testing, let me tell you. Say there are two versions of a product we have created, and I want to know which version would do better. Okay. Then I'm going to using here A/B testing. Let's say, keep it simple. Let's say there are two versions of a web page I created. Let's say this is the product, two versions of a web page. Now I want to decide which one would do better. Okay, so which one shall I go for? There I'll go for A/B testing. So the way it is conducted is, I would arrange number of people who are ready to review and provide me feedback. Let's say we could arrange 50 people who would do that. Now what I'm going to do, out of these 50 people, I'll put them randomly, divide them into two groups of 25 each. Okay, randomly, remember. And to one of the groups, we would show the version A of the product. The other group will show the other version. Let me call it as B. Other two versions of the web page I have. And we ask them to score us on a number of parameters. I mean, depends, the parameters would depend on what the product like the click-through rate, ease of navigation. This could be like parameters if it is a web page. And then after we get the scores, so we can compare and see which version received better score. So say version A got a better score. So that means version A is a good one. So we'll finalize and we can go for version A. So this is the use of, A/B testing. So that's why I said it's used to compare two versions of a product. So it's a powerful tool with data-driven decisions can be taken. Without this, what you perception-based, which is better, you decide. But A/B testing could be an objective way to decide which version is doing better. So these are a couple of other tools in quality. Moving on, another process that requires monitoring is monitoring stakeholder engagement. Now try to recall, we had a process plan stakeholder engagement. So there we develop strategies, we define engagement modes. Then we had a process in execution where which was managed stakeholder engagement. There we actually went ahead and engaged with the stakeholders. That is, we implemented those engagement modes and the strategies. Now comes monitor stakeholder engagement. This will run in parallel with manage. All right. And what am I going to do here? One, I would check what did we implement every strategy? Did we all the engagement votes were implemented on the ground, that there were no lapses? So this check is typical of any monitoring process, right? You check for any lapses. That's one thing you do. And the second thing you do is you identify more stakeholders. See, we had the process named identify stakeholders, which we performed in the initiation stage itself. Now, I'm sure you appreciate as the project progresses, new stakeholders would come into picture. So we cannot only once identify and forget. We'll have to continue identification of stakeholders. These new stakeholders would have new needs and all that we need to cater to. So that's the second thing I do here. And a third thing I do, look, third thing, important one, I measure effectiveness. Effectiveness of what? Of stakeholder engagement. Okay. So this is like, say, we had been engaging with the stakeholders for the last 2 months. Here I stand. Now I need to check, is stakeholder engagement in overall working or not? How effective stakeholder engagement has been in the project. So by the way, what would be some ways to measure that? I'll tell you a few ways to measure that would be check for conversion from negative to positive. Like on day one, we had say 10 negative stakeholders. Now 2 months down the line, I'm checking. I find there are, two negative stakeholders. That's a great indication. That is 8 of them you could successfully convert to whatever neutral, supportive, any which ways is an achievement. Okay. That's one way. You remember we prepared that stakeholder engagement assessment matrix wherein we map the current and desired level of engagement, right? We look for gaps and all. So that is also very helpful to monitor. So first time you created in the planning stage, say there were gaps with 20 stakeholders. I mean, gap in the current and desired level of engagement. Now I'm checking how many gaps still exist, how many have we bridged. We find 4 or 5 gaps still exist. That's again a good indication that is, so you could successfully get 15 people to their desired level of engagement. That's working. Another measure could be like just check out how many stakeholder issues are keeping open. So we find in all 2 dozen stakeholder issues did arise. Out of that, 4 or 5 are open. Again, that's a good indication. So that means you successfully closed around 20 issues. These would be a few ways to measure how successful, or effective your stakeholder engagement has been. And should you find it is not effective, then what? See, every control process does the same thing. Corrective and preventive actions you would take. Here, the corrective preventive actions would relate to strategies. That means the strategies we executed is weak, is not working. So identify better strategies. Your engagement modes are not effective. Identify better ways to engage. So these are the kind of corrective actions we will take. So that's all I do in monitor stakeholder engagement. 3 things. We check whether the engagement modes and strategies are implemented. We identify more stakeholders and more needs. We also measure effectiveness and take corrective actions as required. Okay. Now, another aspect of stakeholder management is perception management. You agree? This is a saying, this nice one, see what it says. Perceptions are probably more important than the reality. You agree to this one? What I mean is, say maybe everything is going well in your project, but some stakeholders perceive that it's not so. That's enough for them to, make your life difficult, isn't it? In another case, maybe things are not really so that well, but stakeholders perceive that, yeah, things are going fine. I mean, even that could happen. Your life is easy. So perceptions, very important. So managing perception here is a 4-step process to manage perceptions of the stakeholder. A simple one, have a look. The first step would be conduct a stakeholders perception audit. Okay, so this is to understand what's the current perception of the stakeholders. I mean, you can do a survey to find out what is their current belief, what do they perceive currently. Then after you understand what their perception is, next you identify any perception gap. What's a perception gap? When there's a gap in the fact, the reality, and what stakeholders perceive. That's known as, a gap. So you'll check where there are gaps in the perception of the stakeholders. And if there are gaps, next what do we do? Implement change programs. You understand, change program means, change programs could mean many things, conduct workshops, send out certain communications and all. So basically these change programs are aimed towards clarifying or sharing the reality, the fact with them. Okay, so this would help clarify the perceptions, fix the perceptions in case there are any gaps. You would conduct these change programs. All right. And then finally, again, measure whether the perception gap has been bridged or it still exists. So this is a simple 4-step process to manage perceptions of the stakeholders. Are we good this far? Any questions? Fair. Then I'll take you to the next knowledge area that again requires monitoring is monitoring communications. Again, try to recall, we had a process plan communications. There we came up with a listing of all communication that has to take place. We prepared a communication matrix wherein we planned it, right? Next, in execution, we had managed communications, wherein we actually go ahead and communicate that, implement the plan. Here comes monitor communication. Again, this is going to run in parallel with managed communication. And what would it do? Again, check what everything was communicated as per the plan. There were no lapses. Again, this is typical of any monitoring process, as you know. And a second thing that I do here, I would collect feedback. Look, feedback on what? On the usefulness of project communications. I'll collect feedback. See, the idea is unnecessary communication to be avoided. We should only communicate what's required. So this feedback is like, let's say, I have been circulating the status report for the last 3 weeks. I'm sending it to you. Now I would proactively reach out to you and check, are you getting the report on time? Do you find the content relevant? Is the level of details in the report helpful? Does that suffice your need? These kind of feedback I'm going to collect. Now said, you provided me feedback, yeah, all is well, but it would be great if I could add what are the burning issues and what are the major risks which are open this moment. If these were also added to the status report, it would be much helpful. Fair, I'll take that and I'll incorporate. Incorporate is what? I go change the template of the status report, right? To include burning issues and risks. So this is what I'm handling here, okay? So the goal of this process is to ensure that communication is effective, yeah, useful. So that's, yeah, go ahead.
DJ Sunil here. I do have one question in this. I
Yeah.
mean, suppose initially we were sending the statuses. Initially, the people were interested and the feedback we received was positive. But as time progresses and people, I mean, like they're not observing the status as eagerly as what they did initially.
Right.
So do we still need to maintain the statuses as it is, or
No, if you find that, you will take corrective action. Maybe look, project is green and initial course is done, so people do not need so frequent updates. That's why they don't open their emails. So reduce the frequency of status report maybe. Okay. Or maybe make your status report light, short. Okay. So yeah, there's a corrective action needed. So as part of monitoring, I would decide to take a step. So yeah, that was a very good question you asked. All right. So if I don't and keep on doing that, this is unnecessary communication. Avoid that. The goal of monitor communication is to avoid unnecessary communication. Right. Okay. Any other questions as of now? Performance report. We generally prepare this and share. Generally, in a performance report, we would include these things. Have a look. We would include an analysis of the past performance. I mean, we'll provide a high level view of what has been the progress this far. We'll start with that. Next, current status of issues and risks generally included. I mean, you highlight what are the major risks which haven't been mitigated, issues that are burning, issues that are open. We would highlight them here. Next, include matrix, all kind of matrix, cost, times, quality, all matrix you define, include them in the report. Work completed during the current period and forecast to be done in the next period. We generally include that. We would have a section, like let's say we are reporting on a weekly basis. So you would have a section, accomplishments in the last week. I mean, on these lines, you state here how many activities did we undertake in the last week, how many deliverables were created. Okay, you include that. And similarly, you provide a projection for the upcoming week. So what's the plan in the next week? How many more deliverables will you create? How many new activities would you begin? Which ongoing ones are you going to complete? You would generally include that. Results of variance analysis. Let's say there was some variance from plans in the last week. So we would include what was the variation? Why we would have done a root cause analysis. So what was the cause behind it? Also include what corrective action did you take or you intend to take. Yeah. Include a statistics on changes. I mean, how many change requests were raised in all? Out of that, how many were successfully, which were not successfully? How many were approved? How many are on hold? Which ones are rejected? We can include such a stats. And finally, include a forecasted project completion also. I mean, the way things are moving, forecast is like how much delay is expected, how much or more funds would be required, can be included. So these are typical contents of a performance report. Part of communication. Fair. Now I'll take you to the next one, monitoring risk. So we already learned the risk management life cycle. Identification, analysis, response planning, implementation of responses we talked about. This is monitor. And it's an ongoing process, just like any other monitoring. Now, as part of this process, we would do several things. Like they listed, let's run through the list. These are certain activities we perform. We'll check compliance to risk management process. If we're going to conduct risk audits for that. We saw audit earlier also, but the scope of this audit is only risk management activities. I mean, we'll see the risk study is maintained, the risk management processes are being followed, there are no lapses. Okay, so we'll do that. You remember what is this phrase, overall project risk? We learned this yesterday. Yesterday, is it? No recall. Yeah, yes. The sum total of all EMVs. Okay, that is what we call as the risk exposure, which I talked about yesterday. So that is what is overall project risk. And that, what are we doing about it? We are checking whether it is within tolerance or not. So we had defined our risk tolerance is what 100,000 should be the risk exposure. I mean, within 100,000. So we keep calculating the exposure at regular intervals and keep checking, is it within tolerance or not? Timely implementation of response measures. That's another thing. You would see that the responses are not just documented in the register, they get implemented on the ground timely. Tracking identified risk. Look, why do we need to track identified risk? Can you appreciate some risk, let's say that was non-critical until yesterday has become critical today? Can happen. The reverse could also happen, right? So we need to track the identified ones. So the risk was non-critical, but now it has turned out, I mean, its probability has increased, let's say. So we would have to come up with a response plan. Earlier, we thought not essential to do that, okay? Identifying new risk. I'm sure you understand, as the project progresses, new risk could emerge. So we'll have to continue identification of new risks. That's something we do. Monitoring residual risk. Do you understand residual? I'm not sure if I talk about it. Say we had a risk of probability of that risk was 0.1. All right. No, I'll just increase, sorry, 0.9. So the impact was 0.4. So what is the risk score coming to? 0.36, right? Now let's say I mitigated this risk. So by that, what happened is the probability fell to 0.01 and the impact remains the same. So what is the new risk score now? 0.04, right? This is the risk score. This is what we call as residual risk. The amount of risk that remains even after we have responded to the risk is what we call as residual risk. And why do we need to monitor residual risk? Let's say it didn't come down to 0.04, it came down to 0.20 only. That means the risk is not sufficiently mitigated. 0.20 is a very high risk score. We may have to look for another response. So we got to monitor this. Trigger conditions we got to monitor. You remember yesterday I told you trigger or symptom. We learned one response strategy that was contingent response strategy, right? So yeah, if the trigger occurs, we'll have to invoke the contingent response strategy. So we monitor that as well. Validate project assumptions. Again, is a repeat. One of the techniques in identify risk was validate assumptions. We did it already. But you know what? As the project progresses, the situation might change. Some more assumptions, which I earlier thought not important, but now I see they better be managed as risks. The situation has changed. We continue doing that. And the last one, reserve analysis, we call it. So this is about checking. It's like we kept a reserve of say 50,000 to deal with some 10 risk in the project. Okay. Now I'm checking midway how many of these risks are remaining and how much of reserve is remaining. See, ideally, the rate at which you eat up the reserves should be in proportion to the rate at which risk get eliminated. Right. So we're checking that. So look, so these are a bunch of things we do as part of monitor risk. As I said, it's an ongoing exercise. These are the tools, reserve analysis and audit as the major tool we spoke. Sorry. A couple of more terms in risk management, primary and secondary risk. Let's get these terms. Anybody heard before I tell you what is a primary risk? What's a secondary risk? If you heard. No? Okay, I'll take it. Let's say we had a schedule risk. I mean, by schedule risk, I'll tell you what exactly is the risk. Due to shortage of resources, my project may not complete on time. Sounds like a risk. We have less resource, so project may not complete on time. That's the risk. Now, what I do is I come up with a response plan for this one. Let's say the response is, I'll tell you what response. We decided to outsource 25% of the work. See, the idea is if we were to do it all alone, we may not complete on time, right? So we decided we'll do 75% of the work in-house and 25% we would outsource. I hope you appreciate this has resolved the risk, reasonably. We should be able to complete on time now. But watch, because of this response, let me tell you a new risk has evolved, which was earlier not there. What risk? Quality risk. I'll explain what do you mean by quality risk. Look, the vendor may not do as much justice to quality. For the 75% work we would do in-house, look, we'll be highly quality conscious, but the vendor may not. So because of this decision of outsourcing, there is a possibility that we'll end up developing an inferior quality product. So in this example, watch, schedule is my primary risk and quality is the secondary risk. This outsource was response, of course. So in other words, secondary risk is the baby of the response. Had we not opted for this response, the secondary would not have been there. Hope the terms are understood. So what is the takeaway then? Takeaway is that whenever you finalize risk responses, you should always give consideration to any, does it result in any secondary risk? And if so, what is the quantum of that risk? Let's say, for example, your secondary risk happens to be more critical than the primary one. Then what? Big question on your response planning, right? Yeah. So that's primary and secondary. Okay. Another term in risk management, let me touch upon workaround. You might know a general meaning of the term workaround, but I'll tell you the meaning of workaround in the context of risk management. It has a specific meaning. Look, let's understand this way. Let's say a risk has occurred in the project. Occurred because, okay, whatever reason you had identified and you did nothing about it or whatever, it has occurred. Now, when a risk occurs, it was going to have some damage on the project, right? It will cause some damage. So anything I now do to fix the damage is known as workaround. So understand this way, workaround is an action. If you try to, if you're wondering how is it different from all other response strategies we studied, avoid, answer, mitigate, all of them. Here's the difference. We discussed yesterday, those are all implemented before the risk occurs, I told you. But workaround is an action we take after the risk occurs. So I don't call that as a risk response strategy because this is not risk management. Risk management is about responding prior. But we had just to give some name to any action you would ever take after the risk has occurred. We call that as workaround. All right, so that is all we had in risk monitoring. Then another one, control procurements. So again, try to recall we had a process plan procurements wherein we decided what all we need to procure and we created a bunch of documents that would facilitate procuring the same. Next, we had a process in execution conduct procurement. There I told you what we did is quick recap. We identified who are the potential sellers. Then we send out RFP or bid document to them. Then we got multiple proposals from different vendors. We compared them. And then finally, we signed a contract with one of the vendors. That is when conduct procurement was done. Then begin control procurement. So this is about monitoring the contract, all through. That's what you do here. So some activities you perform as part of control procurement. Let's run through this list. Managing relationship with the vendor. In fact, the project manager at both ends, buyer and seller, they should try their best to strike a good professional relationship. If that's there, then less dispute chances will be. Matching seller's performance with contractual obligation. Do you understand the term breach of contract? Breach means non-adherence to any of the terms of the contract is what we call as a breach. So the second point is about that. So buyer is going to check that the seller does not breach the contract. Okay. What is multiple vendor? Look, multiple vendor is when for a single procurement item, let's say you have more than one vendor. Say I need hardware, large quantities. We have two vendors that we get hardware from. Or I need huge quantities of cement in my project. There are two vendors I get it from. Here's a question. Why would you have two vendors? Why not a single vendor? In fact, this is a risk mitigation measure. Are you able to appreciate? Say you rely on one vendor and that vendor is not able to, provide you with the amounts you want. Okay, so your work would stop, right? So that is why many times you have multiple vendors. Okay, so I said it's a risk mitigation strategy. Formal communications, there'll be a lot of information exchange between the buyer and seller, through the contract duration. So managing all that is certainly a part of this process. Then making necessary payments. Look, as the vendor has started doing the work, it would raise invoices as agreed in the contract. Okay, so processing invoices is also something you handle here. Then processing change request. Understand this way. So we already created a statement of work. We had it in RFP. We send it to the seller. We have signed the contract also. Now watch. Can it not happen that my need could change during the course of the project? I want to make some amendments to the scope. Can happen, right? So that is also handled here. I mean, there'll be a formal process defined in the contract, how the contract could be amended, who to raise the change request to, who would be the approving authorities from both the parties. Okay, how will we agree the compensation for the change? These would be detailed in the contract. So following that, I'm going to be processing change requests. Conduct procurement performance reviews. Look, these you would hold with the seller at major points like end of phases, milestones, and all. Reviews could be conducted with the vendor. The focus of these reviews would be to make out, overall how is the vendor progressing in terms of timelines, expenses, quality, all these aspects. And if there are areas where things are not going fine, then you may want the vendor to take actions, right? So that is performance review. Inspection and audit. Look, these are, I would say, very proactive measures on the part of buyer. Buyer is going to conduct them, and usually at the seller's premises where the work is being performed. So the intent or the purpose of this one is to find out if the seller is performing every step, every process, there are no lapses and all. So this should ensure that the seller will be able to later, deliver what was required. So these inspection audits has to be supported by the seller. Buyer would conduct, seller has to support. They may be pre-planned or even surprise also, depends. Last one, resolving any claims. Hey, what is the meaning of the term claim now? Claim in the context of a contract has a specific meaning. Let me share that. See, claim in simple language means any dispute or disagreement between the buyer and seller is termed as claim. It could be any kind of a dispute. I mean, they're not agreeing, they're interpreting the contract differently. The buyer reads it some way, the seller reads it other way. So they are not able to agree that the deliverable is complete. Buyer says it's not rightly billed, seller says it is. Any kind of, disagreement or dispute pertaining to the contract is referred to as claim. Now question, how are claims to be resolved? Claim is the last thing that you want in a contract, by the way. Claim means the contract won for a toss. Of course, contract is a legal agreement, so we can go to court. I mean, the legal system would be one way. Have you heard of arbitration? Arbitration. We call this as alternate dispute resolution mechanism. So arbitration is where a third party, a neutral party, is going to decide. Since the buyer and seller, they're not able to mutually settle the claim. So there are professional arbitrators to be doing it. So you look at arbitration as like an expert, a lawyer, say, would look at the points of both the parties and issue the judgment in the favor of whoever is reasonable. That's arbitration. So out of court settlement. Yeah. It's an alternate to reaching out to the court. Well, so whatever way, resolving claims is also a part of controlled procurement. Well, that's all we do here. Okay, so we last talked about monitoring of all the knowledge areas, scope, schedule, cost, all the way till procurement. Done. We'll take a pause here. The next part is going to be, we'll focus on monitoring in Agile. We'll speak about it. But before we get there, we'll take up some questions on this topic. Is there a question on all that we discussed this far?
Teacher, I do have one question on the workarounds. You said workarounds would be done when risk mitigation, when a risk is done and
Risk occurs, after the risk occurs.
after a risk occurs, and we will be using the contingency reserve for the workaround.
That I never said. You bring in from home this
Yeah, I'm bringing.
one.
Yeah, I just wanted to check. I mean, are
I
we?
will.
Yeah.
I will clarify. No, please get it right. Contingency reserve. See the difference. You said contingency reserve, right? Not contingent response strategy.
Nahin.
Okay. Yeah, that is fine. That is fine. Yeah, I think then you're right. Sorry. I misheard it as contingent response strategy. I heard it as. Okay, sorry. So yeah, workaround, you can use contingency reserve for that. So workaround is an action we'll take for a risk that has already occurred. So it has had the damage. Anything we now do. Yeah, please access contingency reserve for that. Correct. If you have a follow-up on this.
Okay, I mean, I just wanted to confirm that.
Right, right. Correct. Any other question as of now? Okay, in case not, we can take up some questions now on the modules we covered. So 107, please get here. I think there are 17 questions, lots of questions. 107 till 124, 18 questions. Please try them. Hope you have the file with you ready. In case not, I'm sharing in chat also.
DJ, could you mark my attendance? I joined a little bit late.
Sure. Just doing it. I shared the question booklet in the chat in case you don't have it. Yeah,
Sunil.
yes. Are we done with the questions? I couldn't keep a record of time this time. So if you're done, please let me know. You may please update in the chat window as you complete. Okay. Fine. So I think we can discuss. Okay, I'm going to start discussing. In case you're not done, you need a couple of minutes, I could wait. Please stop me as well.
Please, 2 minutes.
Okay, 2 more minutes. Go ahead. Okay, so I think we can now discuss the questions.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, please get here to question 107. I'll go with B as in Bravo. Anybody said Charlie or any other? Agree. So why is better is here informing the customer. In C, you are addressing the problem, that's fine. But you also have a responsibility of informing the customer the moment you discover, which C doesn't. That's why B is a better answer. Right? Then 108. Very good question. What did you answer? Alpha is the right answer.
Customer.
Yeah. And why customer? Look, you may have already understood, just in case not. See, here it says all stakeholders, including customer, have approved the requirement document. This is important. So customer has already signed off the requirement document. So my job here onwards is just to provide what's there in the requirement document. Nothing more, nothing less. Now coming to the stand of the customer, salesman had promised a feature prior to signing the contract. So my contest here would be, why did you not point it out while signing the requirement document? So we have accordingly scheduled, budgeted the project. So there's no way we can accommodate. So customer is at flaw. Hence, the customer is going to be paying for this one. Any other views?
No, but can I ask a question? Like, what is the difference between customer and sponsor? Like, can a customer be a sponsor?
Now, the sponsor here to mean you would have internally the project manager boss. So the sponsor would be from vendor side.
Oh, I see.
Okay. Yeah.
Salesman.
Yeah. And also wanted to add, now I don't know how the practical answer, how many people have faced this situation like I did. And if I were honestly to say what I did, we didn't charge the customer.
Yeah.
Okay, so practically we go ahead and do something, besides what the books say. That's fine, but don't remember, forget, sorry, don't forget. In the exam, the answers have to be by the books correct. Okay, so if it is practically not correct also.
So what about the promising? The salesman promised the customer.
Saying that the sales, see, the
This
customer is saying there is nowhere, is it documented? Now the point is, are they saying the truth or not? Just saying, we don't know. And also, if it was so, then they should have pointed out, no? So they approve the requirement document. We have accordingly budgeted. So there's no way we can accommodate that. So when you say salesman promise, the answer to that, the context would be very simple. Then why did you not point out in the requirement document? So that is why customer is at flow. Okay. Then 109 now. Yeah, here I'll go with B as in Bravo. Anybody answered A, C, or any other? This question is sure going to be there in the exam. I talked about it earlier. I'll repeat. I told you a simple rule. Whenever you come across a new issue or a risk or a change, for all of them, okay, you know what is the next step? The next step for all of them is impact analysis. That would be the first step. You analyze what impact the risk, issue, or change would have in the project. By the way, here we have a change. Okay, so alternate way of building the product is a change. So, and the question is now then, yeah, so question is, what's the next action next to be noted? Okay, so next action is going to be B. If you thought inform the sponsor and customer, of course we'll inform, but those would be subsequent actions. The first thing would be do detailed impact assessment, which is what B says. Hope you understand?
Yep.
Then 110 now. Okay, here I'll go with C as in Charlie. Anybody for A or any other in 110 or D also? Let me know. I'll explain in the meantime why C. See, what has happened is there's a disagreement between stakeholders because of which a piece of requirement remains to be finalized yet. And what's the first thing you do? See, the first thing towards solving any problem is we have a problem at hand. Get to the root cause. Once we understand the cause, then half the battle is won. We should be able to identify some good way to address it. With that rationale, I'm going for C. Please point out if you have another answer.
Why not D?
Delta. See, I'll give you two reasons why not delta. Number one, delta is very passive. You are doing nothing. What is delta? The two stakeholders who are in disagreement, you ask them, hey guys, you go brainstorm, whoever wins, let me know. So you are doing nothing. One. And second, this would not work. These guys already in a disagreement. So a third party moderation is needed to bring them to a conclusion. So this would not work. So had it been you moderate a discussion, getting those stakeholders to arrive to a conclusion, that would have been good. So these are reasons why I would not go for delta. Could we understand?
Yes, yes.
what about A?
Okay, A, look at that. A says analyze the expectations of each stakeholder. Look, this is a very nice thing to do. And then decide what is in the best interest of the project. This is another very good thing to do, to decide in the best interest of project. So it's so very nice. Now watch, the only reason I don't pick up A, only reason is that, can somebody tell me why not A?
First thing Should.
No, not first thing.
Accepting the project schedule.
No, I'll take it. Then decide. Who decide? You decide. You is implicit. All right. Doesn't have to say. You is implicit, not acceptable. So in this case, whatever we decide should have the consent of the stakeholders. You should have got them, together to decide something. So in case of A, you are deciding without involving or without securing their consent. Hence, it is not a good option. Other parts of A were very nice thing to do. Could you understand? We have to be this careful and eliminate options.
But can you explain now, then understand the reason behind a
That
disagreement?
means root cause analysis.
So that's the
C
PM
means-
will do the root cause analysis, right?
Correct. Why the disagreement? Do root cause analysis.
And then he will share with the stakeholders and come up
Not
with.
share. Don't share the root cause analysis. Next,
Okay.
explore options. So the steps of problem solving would be do RCA. Then after that, you explore alternative ways to solve it. After you think of 2-3 alternates, you pick up which is the best one. Then get to the stakeholders. Okay, here is a way we can, address it. That would be the sequence.
Thank you.
Welcome. Okay, this was indeed a difficult one. See how we are eliminating. Elimination is important. And we reach out to the one that's technically correct. All others are some flaw, you see. 111. This is very straight. I'll go with alpha. I hope you shouldn't have
You said
faced an
alpha.
issue. Oh, no, sorry, my bad. Bravo, my bad. Bravo is the right answer. And why? See, we are behind schedule. There are two ways to catch up. Which are those? Fast taking and crashing. No third way. We studied that. And then no funds. Funds cannot be arranged. Question clearly says. So no fund means forget crashing. You remember the drawback of crashing is it increases the budget.
Yes.
So you cannot crashing ruled out. The only bet is fast tracking. Right? Pretty straight. Then come to 12. Yeah, this one. Midway in your project, a new risk has been identified. And question is which technique would you use? Yep, that's all is stated. Now, I'll go with what is scenario analysis. You know why? Out of the options given, the only one which has anything to do with risk is what if scenario analysis. You remember this technique? Here we analyze, we start asking what if this happens, something else happens. So it's about analyzing how feasible my schedule is under adverse conditions or risk scenarios. But none of the other techniques, A, B, or D, they have nothing to do with risk. They are other techniques. So they don't qualify as the answer.
I have a question here.
Yeah.
So in exam, the options will be here if you see, only C will be related to the question. All others are not even related to the question. Will
Correct.
be see this kind of option will be there? I don't think. Is it? Am I right?
You mean this easy questions or something would not be there in the exam? That's what you're saying?
Options will be like out of the way.
I'm not understanding what you mean.
No. These answers
Yeah.
looks like very irrelevant to the question, except C.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So in the exam, it would happen. Yes, it would happen. This also would happen. So like, look at this. In this question, look, A, B, D, look very irrelevant to the question, right? But go back to the previous one, previous to previous one. Look at this, 110 euro. A, D, they're pretty close. They're not right answer for a small reason, right? So they are pretty close. So you have all kind of questions. In the exam, this would also happen, 110, very, very difficult. Like they all seem close.
Yeah.
And you have some of this make up 112. Like one answer, others are very irrelevant, so easily able to make out. Few questions would be of this type. So exam is a mix like this. Okay. Okay, then 113. Yeah, good question. Here I'll go with cost management plan. Can somebody explain before I do why cost management plan? If you got it right. Okay, then I'll go on. See what, long story. Okay, some variance the PM has seen from the cost baseline, some variance. Okay, so the variance is what, X%, whatever, this amount of variance. Now it's trying to determine if the variance are large enough to warrant corrective and preventive action. So now this PM wants to decide now, does this amount of variance, does it mandate corrective preventive action to be taken or not? And question is, which document can guide the PM Jack to make this decision? Decision is there a need of corrective action or not? And I said cost management plan can guide. And can you point out how does cost management plan guide?
Will have the percent of variation acceptable.
Wonderful. Love it. Yeah, that's the right logic. I'll just show it to you, just in case you couldn't make out. Yeah, somebody has very well answered it. So if you look at the cost management plan here, have a look at the cost management plan contents, just projecting it. In the cost management plan, there are many things, including control threshold. This section of the plan would help. Control threshold is, you have written cost variance should be within, say, 3% is written. Now, now relate to question. In the question, if the variance is currently 4%, then we'll have to take corrective action. But say in the question, the variance is 2%, you don't need a corrective action. So this section of the plan is going to help you make out. I hope you either got it right or now understand it. In case not, let me know. Fair, then 114, I'll take you to. Okay, this one, before I give you the answer, these kind of questions would be there in the exam, earned value. Okay, and I told you calculations are less likely. I said that, but these kinds of questions very, very likely. How to approach these questions? Look, the moment I read SPA of the project is 1.2, I'll quickly draw an inference before I read further. SPA 1.2 means what? We are running ahead of schedule,
Ahead of the schedule.
20% ahead of schedule, right? Then I find CPA is 0.7. What's the inference? Cost overrun.
Overrun.
Okay, so cost overrun is there. So very clearly in this question, time is no worry for us. We are running 20% ahead, but cost is a matter of concern. Now question is, what would you do? So the right answer would be one that addresses our cost concern, which is our concern. So did anybody say A, B? You're fully mistaken if you said,
No.
because crashing, fast tracking are ways to squeeze the timeline. When you are running 20% ahead of schedule, there's no need of fast tracking crashing. Okay, these are to resolve your time worry, which is no worry for us here. So I'll go with C, that makes some sense. What C says is, look into the mix of resources deployed in the project. This to mean, let's say we have engaged 10 senior engineers in the project, let's say. And these senior resources, I mean, so these guys are, so these guys are highly productive, and hence we are running 20% ahead of schedule. So this option says, see if we can replace some of them by junior engineers. So what would happen now if we replace by junior engineers? The pace would come down. No worry, we are running 20% ahead of schedule, we can absorb. But these guys would come cheaper, addressing our cost concern. So C would be a compromise on the pace and catch up on cost, which is the need of the hour. So that's why C is the best option. Did he really answer this? Any other views? Okay. Then 115. Yeah, this is very easy. I'll go with A. And how do I arrive here? I could do one thing. I could calculate schedule variance and cost variance, then I can easily draw the inference. So you remember the formula for schedule variance, EV minus PV. So EV is given 40, PV is 50, so minus 10. Negative schedule variance. What does that mean? We are behind schedule, right? Calculate cost variance, EV minus AC. So that's like 40 minus 30. That's a plus 10, positive. Positive cost variance means what? We are spending less. Cost underrun, or we are spending less. So the answer is very clear. Project is likely to be delayed. True, we are running behind, but will be completed under budget. We won't consume all the budget. We are spending less, you see. So that's the answer. Hope you got this answer. Any other? Let me know. Okay, looks good. Then I move on to 116. Just give me a sec. Okay, 16. Okay, here I'll go with A and B. Yeah, this should be easy. SPI 0.75 and CPI 0.26, both under 1. So very clearly there is time overrun and cost overrun, right? So A is one right answer. There'll be a lot of cost and time overrun on completion. And B says cost and schedule variance are less than 0. Absolutely. Do you appreciate that? I told you if SPI is under 1, SV has to be negative. They cannot contradict each other. You can try for any combination of value. Say EV is 30 and PV is 40. You calculate both of them. Schedule variance would be EV minus PV, that's minus 10,000. Calculate SPI. SPI is 30 divided by 40, EV minus PV, upon PV, sorry, divided by PV. That's like 0.75. So that's what B is saying. I find these two as true. Any other if you found true in 116? Do point out. Okay. Then 117. Yeah, good question. Here I'll go for Charlie. Any other answer? Anybody answered Bravo or any other?
Yeah, I should be first.
Okay, I'll explain. Look, question says SPA is 0.8. That means we are behind schedule. And CPA is 0.9. That is, there is cost overrun. We see that. Now, question is, which of the following best describes why this could have happened? Interesting. Question is very different make. It doesn't ask you what would you do. So question is what is asking, look, given our 4 options, A, B, C, D, you pick up that statement which best explains why this situation. What is the situation? SPI being 0.8 and CPI being 0.9. Okay, this is the question. And C does it well. Let me start with that first. How? C says, more laborers were used in the project than planned, resulting in cost overrun. Pause here. So this is a nice reason provided why CPA is 0.9. You use more resources than planned. Then look at the later part of the statement. Due to non-availability of fund because there was overrun, you had to postpone some work in the project. So this part explains why your SPI stands at 0.8 because you have to postpone work. So you're pushed behind schedule. So C is a very nice explanation of the situation in the question. Now look at B, why B is not correct. Look, B says contractor's progress has been slower than planned. All right, this explains why SPI is 0.8. Contractor is moving slow. But that's all. So nothing wrong about B. But A is half explanation of the situation. B doesn't speak at all about why CPA is 0.9. Hence not the better answer. But C is a full explanation of the situation. Could we understand that? All right. See, this question doesn't require any knowledge. It just requires careful examination, reading, rightly interpreting, right? Okay. Then 118 now. Yeah, this should be easy. Process need to be reviewed. This is on control chart. Rule of 7 is applied. Did you see? See, the mean is 10. So we see 7 consecutive measurements above 10. 1, 2, 3,
7.
4, 5, 6, and 7. So 7 consecutive measurements have already been on one side. That means what? Rule of 7 applied. So if rule of 7 applies, then what does that mean? The process has to be reviewed. There is some special cause making it happen. So A is the right answer. Okay. Any other views? Okay. Then I'll take you to 119. Yeah, here I'll go with B as in Bravo. Simple one. How? See, what is the concern of the senior management? Will project complete on time? And this is the concern. And question is, which report would you provide? Now come to the options. The only option that talks about time progress at all is milestone chart with achievements so far. So milestone chart provides a high level time progress. And there's only one which talks about time progress, none other. So it is the answer. Any other if you felt is better? Okay. Then I take it to 20. Okay, this is a good example of secondary risk.
Hmm.
Anybody answer residual or any other? See here, fire is the risk. You come up with water sprinklers. That is the response. And because of this response, a new risk comes into picture. That is flood. The facility would get flooded. So in this case, fire is the primary one and flood is secondary. So flood is the baby of the response, which is what we call a secondary. Okay. Then 121, I'll take you to. Okay, that's a good example of workaround. We spoke about the term workaround today, right? So any action you take after a risk occurs, we call as workaround. So that is what has happened. The flight is taken off, the risk has occurred. So anything you do now would be workaround. What you did, you arrange a seat with another airline. So workaround. Understand? Any other question, any other option if you have here? Good. Then 122, I'll take you to next. Yeah, this is a good one.
Just
Yeah.
the one, the 121. Why it won't be risk mitigation?
Because the risk already happened.
First of
Oh.
all, the question is not what is a response is not talked about. Question is what is flood?
No. Sorry, I'm talking about 121. Simple
Oh,
one.
sorry, 121. Okay, 121. Okay, answer. Because mitigation is before the risk occurs. It's an action you take before the risk occurs.
Oh,
But
I
here
see.
it is after the risk occurs.
Good point. Mhm.
Okay. 22. I'll explain it in parallel before I give you the answer. Let's understand what he's saying. You find several risks have occurred in the project. All right. You consider concern when improving risk management in the project. One of your team members points out that some of these were identified initially and they were planned for. That is, you came up with responses for them, but never implemented. So what is the problem? Do the right troubleshooting. The problem is responses were not implemented. This is the problem. Okay. And question is, why do you think this could have happened? Interesting. Why this could have happened? What could have happened? Non-implementation of responses. So I'll give you the answers in parallel. One answer I'll pick up is A. Let me justify. A says monitor risk process was not effective in the project. I'll explain it this way. Come back to monitor risk process we studied. Here, as part of monitor risk, you do several things. Watch. One of them being timely implementation of response measures. This is one agenda of monitoring. So in other words, what I'm saying is if monitor risk process were effective, then this would not have happened. You know, that you didn't implement the response. That's how A qualifies as one of the answers here. Okay. Then the other one I'll pick up B as another answer. Risk audits were not conducted. Again, come here, I'll show you. Audit is a tool. And in audit, I have lots of agenda. We check for compliance, whether artifacts are maintained, many things. And one of the many things is where the responses were timely implemented. Audit is also going to confirm, make sure that responses are timely implemented. So in other words, if audits were effective, again, this would not have happened. So that qualifies as an answer. And the third one I would pick up is Eagle. Risk ownership was not assigned. You remember we spoke for every risk you assign owner. Had we assigned, okay, John, you are going to be the risk owner for this risk, let's say, then John would have taken care. You remember the responsibility of owner. owner would be responsible for managing all aspects after that risk, including timely implementation of response. So if he had assigned somebody as owner, again, this would not have happened. This is how ABE qualify as the right answer. Did you really answer it this way? Any other views? Let me know. Any other? Okay, agree. Then I take you to 123. Okay, this one, another question. No good answers. Like you'll face, we saw this one. No good answer is there. I'll go with which one? B, by applying elimination. If you got something else, let me know. Did anybody answer delta? That could have been a compelling one. I'll explain in the meantime. Share your views. I think A and C are very easily eliminated. If you are not able to eliminate, let me know. I would help you. But you would easily narrow down to between B and D. And how will I eliminate D? You know, look what D says, relook communication channel. Now, what I have to say, when would you relook communication channels in a project? When there are lapses in communication, isn't it? Okay. Then I would revisit. But come to the question, there is no lapse in communication. Let me show you. In this question, read with me. What it says is, you are present at the site. The stipulated client representative has not shown up as per agreed schedule to be noted. Agreed schedule means, look, you sent the meeting invite already. The client had accepted. So why did it not turn up? We don't know. But for sure, it's not because of lack of communication. So that is why I would rule out delta. So I'm left with B. That makes some sense. Do share if you got any other view here. Okay. Then I'll take you to the last one. Objective of monitor stakeholder engagement. That's very easy. Bravo. In fact, that's the only one which has the term monitoring. You adjust strategies to better engage you do. Did you get something else? All right. So that's all we had. Fair. So let's move on. So this done. Now, next, I'm going to talk about a little bit on monitoring in agile environment. Let's see that. Before I start, I'll ask a question. Try this as a question. Tell me, this knowledge area, communication management, communication. How will this be some different in predictive versus agile? What all ways communication is different? Let's have your views, predictive versus agile. Yeah. Anybody? You understand my question, right? Yeah, shouldn't be
Like
difficult. Yeah.
is it like a
Right.
day-to-day communication with with the agile team versus predictive is could be after I mean at certain interval?
So it's like more frequent communication in agile,
Right. What I
right?
wanted to know.
Yes, agree. Okay, so this is more frequent in agile communication. Correct, agree. Any other, you can give me any difference you are able to make out. Like I got one. Any other ways? No, no other difference you're finding? I'll wait for a few more seconds. If you want, you can use the chat as well.
Agile says that face-to-face communication is better.
More face-to-face communication. Very well said. There's an emphasis on more to face-to-face. While in predictive, that's not necessary. Right? I don't write anything means you understand. It's not necessary here. So predictive is less frequent. Yes, thank you. Helps. Any more? Yeah, you have answers. Predictive is more formal than agile. Okay, this would also be right to say. Okay, so in predictive, more formal communications you adopt. In agile, there's relatively more informal communication between team and all. Yes, even this is right. Any more? The
In-
most important one.
In
Yeah.
predictive documentation, every communication should be in different documentation.
And what about agile?
Agile, so much documentation is not required.
Hmm. So I will give it the light language. I won't call it as documentation, but I think I understand where you come from. Predictive will rely on more of written communication. Lot of written communication, and this part we are yet to discuss actually, but agile relies more on visual communication. This I'm going to speak about now. Those who know agile can appreciate. Maybe let me speak about it before I take the next point. Okay, watch. In agile, there is a lot of emphasis on visual communication. Now, what is that visual communication? Agile teams, they would have space on the walls where they are going to hang lot of boards, graphs, charts, handwritten, electronic, whatever format. So I repeat, they would have dedicated space on the wall and they will put lot of information on that wall. This I'm calling as visual communication. When I say information, it could be like boards, graphs, charts, all these kind of information. I'm calling this as visual communication. But in predictive, we emphasize on more on written communication. You prepare a bunch of written communication. So in agile, I repeat, we try to minimize written communication. In other language, we minimize written communication as much as is possible. Instead, we focus on what? We more focus on visual communication on the wall. This is a very big difference. Yeah, I got some differences. Thank you. If somebody wants to add further, you can, or else I'll come back. See, I just talked about visual communication, all those that we put it on the walls. Another term used for that visual communication is information radiators. This is a very fancy term they use in Agile. So information radiator is a generic term we're using for all that visual communication the team is going to put it on the wall. Okay, those are termed as information radiators. And what the idea is, I'll just add on. The idea is in Agile, we don't send written reports. So the idea is whoever cares to know what's happening, what's the progress, come have a look at our walls. So we have all sort of information on the wall. And transparency, another thing. Agile is all about transparency, right? So whatever is happening, good, bad, is there on the wall. Anybody, team, other stakeholders, whoever wants, come have a look at our wall. Don't ask us for reports. This is one way to understand, communication in Agile. Okay, having understood this, I'm now going to talk about a few commonly used information editors. Let's see. One, task board. Scrum talks about this task board. This is very, very commonly used. I'm sure a lot of you would have used it also. In case you haven't used, we just speak about it. A task board is a very effective, tool, I would say, to monitor a sprint, an iteration, whatever you call it. So this is how you draw it. So we have these columns or swim lanes, to do, and to do is like at the beginning of a sprint, all items would be here. To do column. Okay. And what are these? In progress, ready for deploy, approving? These are intermediate stages of development. And please take a note what these intermediate stages would be and how many intermediate stages would be there. That is very subjective, depends on your project. Like in this example, we are having 3 intermediate stages of development. And then we finally have done. Done is like the item has completed all the stages and is complete. Okay. Now, so what the team would do, very simple. On day 1 of the sprint, see each requirement, these are your task or user stories, this sticky pad, you put them all on in the to do column. All of them would be here on day 1 of the sprint. So as you execute, please help mute yourself. So as you execute, the sprint, you keep on updating. Let's say, let me name this item as A. So tomorrow the team is going to picks up this item and starts working on. Sorry. So what you do, you will pick up A from here and put it here. So this item is B in progress. Now it gets over. So B you take and put it here to the next stage of development. So items would keep moving this way from left to right. And ultimately they get done when all stages are complete. So it's like by the last day of the sprint, end of the sprint, all of the items should be under the done column. So this is known as a task board. It's a very simple way to monitor progress. So anyone who wants to know what's the progress in the sprint, have a look at the task board. It clearly speaks how many are done, what is lying in what stage of development, how many are fresh, we haven't started. We get all this picture here. I will add one more thing. A common practice is the team hold daily scrum meeting. Remember, we spoke daily scrum meeting. In the daily scrum, the progress is discussed. So after the daily scrum, they'll come and update this task board. Updating what? You take some items from here and there and put it in these columns, just like that. So this is how we ensure that any given point in time, it reflects the current status of the sprint. I'll pause. Anybody got a question on task board is welcome. Yeah, so that's a very commonly used information radiator. Okay, good. Then another information radiator, a burn down chart. Again, quite popular. The use of burn down chart, I'll tell you. Burn down chart is used to monitor. Monitor what? It can be used to monitor the sprint. You can use it to monitor a release. See, a release happens after some sprints, right? 2, 3, 4 sprints. Or it can be used to monitor the entire project also. Point to be noted, we can create burn down chart for all the levels, sprint, release, and project. Here's one. I'll show you another one right from the making, easy to understand. Say we'll create a burn down chart for a release. So watch out in the burn down chart. First of all, get the axis. What is the x-axis? X-axis is time, by the way. All right. So like we have sprint numbers, sprint 1, 2, 3, and so on. Okay. And y-axis is what? Story points. Okay. You see numbers 10, 20 all the way. Now, look at this line, this blue line. Okay. This blue line. Okay. I'll just name it. What is that? This line is termed as ideal work remaining. Okay, so the blue line is depicting ideal work remaining. So meaning this curve is telling us, see, release 1 is planned here, end of sprint 8. And this release has around 145 story points worth of features. So this is the size of the release. All right. And as the team progresses, the remaining work. So blue line is actually depicting remaining work. So on day 0 here, before we have started execution, all work is remaining 145 story points. Now, as the team executes sprints, the remaining work will keep on dropping. And then it touches the x-axis at the end of sprint 8 or becomes 0. That is, it's all over. So that's the ideal work remaining. And this ideal work remaining is a straight line. Why? Because you would assume the velocity to be what? Consistent. So it's like a straight line. Okay, this done. Next, what the team would do as we start execution. So here, look at this red line that's being drawn, going zigzag. I name it this red line. What do we call this as? This is termed as actual work remaining. I said it is actual work remaining. Yeah. So that tells us how actually things are moving. Like analyze this. Let's go back. Say at the end of sprint 1, while the ideal work remaining, ideally the work remaining should have dropped to like 125 story point. But actually what happened? It only dropped to 135. This is what is telling us. So we did bad job in sprint 1, right? Okay, whatever. Sprint 2 was this. I'll just clean it once. Now the team stands at the end of sprint 4. They are. So by comparing the actual work remaining with the ideal work remaining, you can make out where do we stand. So let's make out. So it's like at sprint 4C, ideally the work remaining should have been 75 story point, but actually it's 95. So very clearly the team is actually behind by 20 story points. They are, going slow. This is what the actual work remaining curve tells us. All right. Before we move on, I'll again go back and ask you something. look at the actual work remaining curve depicting for sprint 1 and 2. So this one is for sprint 1, this is for sprint 2. I have a question. Try this. In which of the sprints, I mean sprint 1 or sprint 2, was the team more productive? Can you
Sprint
try
2.
this question? I heard sprint 2.
Hmm.
I hope others got my question. In which of the sprints, 1 or 2, was the team more productive? The answer is sprint 2. Rightly said. You're able to make out, right? See, very simple. Looking at the slope of the line, you can make out. Say, if the line were more flat, that means remaining work hasn't much dropped, so less productivity. But a sharp decline would mean, yeah, that's high productivity. Lot of remaining work has dropped significantly. Like if you compare the slope of sprint 1 and 2 here, it's clearly visible that 2, the team was better. 1 went bad. 3 was also not that good, you see, less productivity. 4 was relatively better. Anyways, whatever, but we understood these 2 lines. Now introducing a third line. Look, burn down chart is all about understanding 3 lines. I hope the first 2 is understood. The blue one, I repeat, is ideal work remaining. The red one is actual work remaining. Now introducing the third one. Look at this black line. You know what is it, first of all? You simply extrapolate the red line, the actual work remaining, to see where do you stand up. Sorry, where do you land up? Sorry, my bad. So that is what is just an extrapolation of that. And you let me name the black line. What do we call it as? Call it as forecast of remaining work. So this is forecast of remaining work. So meaning this black line, what it conveys is the way things are moving, watch. We need another 3 sprints to complete this amount of work. We're significantly behind. So it's a forecast. So that's all about burn down chart. So in a burn down chart, we draw these 3 lines together and it tells us the progress visually. How much behind we are, where do we land up, all of it. If you got a question on burn down chart, this one. Okay, good. Another information radiator I'm going to talk about, Kanban board. Okay, we'll speak about this one. First, have a look at the board, then I'll speak a few points about it. Look in the board, we have again backlog. And what are these in progress, peer review, in test? Again, these are intermediate stages of development. You know, the way we had it in the task board we saw in Scrum. And again, this one is done. I mean, it may be looking somewhat similar to your task board, right? The one we saw, this task board. This one. Yeah, kind of. We had, I mean, these columns were there, but there's a lot of difference, I'll tell you. The columns are pretty much similar. Now come back. Okay, next thing, you know, there are some numbers written here. In progress 3, peer review 3, in test 1. What are these numbers? These we call as WIP limit. WIP stands for work in progress limit. Work in progress limit. Now, what does that mean? Like we said, 3 in progress. You know what that means is we are saying we have a capacity or a limit of 3 items at a given point in time. Okay. So before I explain WIP limit more, I'll make you read one point about it. Kanban focuses on optimizing the flow of work. Right? This is the focus here. So I'll give a simple analogy to explain that. You know, if you open too much of a work at a given point in time, you're working on too many things, then you know what would happen? We'll be stuck. There'll be bottlenecks. Things won't complete. There won't be throughput. All right. But if we limit the number of items we are working on currently, then there'll be a constant flow of work. We won't be stuck. Take a simple example, like say there is a stretch of a road. If a reasonable number of vehicles enter that stretch, then you know what? There'll be constant flowing traffic would be there. But if a large number of vehicles enter that, then what? We'll be stuck. There'll be congestion. You know, that's the idea. So come back. So Kanban focuses on limiting the amount of work at a given point in time. So for each of these stages of development, you define a limit. Okay. Now the rule in Kanban, watch. Now next understand. See, in progress, what is our limit? 3. So we're saying not more than 3 items can be take, right? So, and how many items are currently there in progress? 1, 2, 3. Already there. That means we are full already in progress. Let's say this item A in the backlog. This item, I just named it as A. So this item is waiting for long, desperately waiting to get started. But you know what? We cannot take it. Why? There's no capacity available. So let's say tomorrow this item number 3 in progress is done and moves to the next stage of development. It gets here. Look, when that happens, then there'll be capacity generated in back in this in progress, and then I can get A here. So this is the rule. If you already have 3 items, a 4th one cannot come here. So the items would keep moving this way. Similarly, in test, you have a look. One is a capacity, there's one item already. Say, let this item, let me name it as X under peer review. So this is done. It has to get to in test, but it cannot. It's waiting. So what the team would do, they will work together to see how do we push this item under in test to done. When that happens, then only X can get here. Okay, that is what the concept of work in progress limit is. So another point about Kanban I'll make now. We call Kanban as a pull-based system. Look, I use the term, I'll explain. We call it as what? Pull-based system or pull-based scheduling, you call it. And why we are saying that, understand. See the items in the backlog, these items that are waiting. We don't have a timeline defined for them. No, we don't have a predefined schedule. The team would pick up work from this backlog as and when they have capacity. That's why we call it as a pull-based system. So A doesn't have a date. Okay, on 5th August, it will get to in progress. We don't have that. We don't know. So A would get to in progress when capacity is available. Hence, we are calling Kanban as a pull-based system. And also take a note, I wanted to add, Kanban is not restricted to a project. You can use it anywhere. I mean, outside a project, operational environment. In fact, where does Kanban come from? From the manufacturing sector. A typical operations, manufacturing, we can have Kanban board. So, I mean, say in routine work also, right? So these are tickets waiting, coming from the customer. Okay, they are waiting here. So in such a BAU environment also, we can well use Kanban. So team would keep picking work from here as capacity is available. So that would be a couple of lines about Kanban board. So I'll again highlight what are the main highlights about Kanban board. It optimizes the flow of work. How does it do that? By limiting the amount of work. So we limit the work so that there'll be, throughput. There'll be continuous flow would be there. And I said it's a pull-based system. All right. These are a couple of points. Anybody? Yeah.
How do we identify the limits?
Limit has to do with your team size. There are 5 guys, so they have a capacity of this in this stage. Okay, so if you want to change the limit required, you can change that. So you find our limit is less, you get more people, so that our limit will go up. So limit, I repeat, is to do with number of people or team you have for that work.
So the limiting system is specific to Kanban boards.
Yes.
See
So
that-
limiting concept doesn't apply in Scrum board. No, there's no concept of limiting here. True.
Okay.
Teacher, can you go back to the
Kanban.
Scrum?
Scrum
Yeah,
board.
yeah.
Yeah, this one.
The task board, the other picture, the burn down, sorry, the burn
Burn
down.
down. Yeah, look at this. Yes.
So what is this blue line? Blue line, so I see on the x-axis you put sprint 1, sprint 2, sprint 3. So normally I'm used to with day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4.
I'll tell you, rightly done. That you do when you're creating a burn down chart for a sprint.
Yeah.
Okay, for a release, I use that. See here, this one is for a sprint. For sprint, you would have day 1, day 2.
I
Okay.
see.
So when I'm doing for entire project also, do you remember I said for entire project also you can do? Again, we'll use sprints. Okay, so x-axis is time. Whether the time is sprint is time, right? 2 weeks, or 1 week, whatever weeks. Yeah. So could be days, could be sprints.
Yeah, the release burn down. Interesting.
Any other question if you have?
I haven't seen this chart.
Seen this
And
burn down?
Jira even. No, I
You have.
mean the release burn down chart. Do they have?
Release you haven't seen. Okay, you said.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's also created. You can create.
I see. Okay, I'll give it a try. That's interesting. Yeah, thank you.
Anybody got another question for me? A few matrix I'll talk about. Watch. Lead time. Okay. Let's say, okay, so this is the queue. The items are waiting here to get started. This intermediate stage 1, intermediate stage 2, say third one, and say this is done. Okay. A few matrix will monitor, understand. Okay, look at it this way. So a new item, when it enters the queue, it would stay in the queue for a while before it gets picked up in intermediate stage 1. Thereafter, it would go to 2 and then to 3, and then it would be done, right? So this whole time from here to here, the day it enters the queue and the time it gets done, we call this as the lead time of the process. So this is known as lead time. Let's say, to give some numbers, let's say the item, um, it waited in the queue for say 7 days. Here it was. Then it took say 15 days to pass through the intermediate stages. So it's like the lead time comes to 22 days. All right. So this is one metric we're going to be continuously monitoring. Now watch. Next, this time, the time the item takes to pass through all the stages of development. I mean, just exclude the queue time. This we call as the cycle time of the process, which in my example is like 15 days. Remember, I said it took 15 days to pass through all these intermediate stages. And a last one, this time, the time the item spends in the queue, just waiting to get started. Okay, this we call as a limit, we call it as response time. Okay, known as response time. Like in my example, it was like 7 days. Okay, it waited for 7 days. So these are some metrics you monitor. What is the process lead time, cycle time, and response time? I mean, look for trends and all. If the lead time is increasing, so you must investigate either the cycle time would have gone up or the response time would have gone up. If the response time is going up, that means maybe more uh, work items are coming in, the workload is increasing, right? So we can monitor these. I hope these three metrics are understood. If you have a question, let me know. All right, I think we'll take a pause here. It's almost time for a break. We'll come back and then take up the last part of monitoring, which is managing changes. So he'll talk about dealing with change request. Okay, so any last question before I start the break? No, all good. Fair. So see you in 30 minutes then. Right. Thank you. Welcome back. Okay. All right, so we'll move to the last part of monitoring, that's managing changes. Change control system. So in order to ensure that changes are dealt with in a structured manner in a project, we need to define some kind of a change control system for every project. When I say system, look, I'll show you something here. What does the system comprise of? So there'll be change forms. Forms, you understand, like we'll have designated change request form. So it's like anybody who wants to raise a change, fill the form, submit it to the project manager. And then we need tracking mechanisms. Look, when we say change management, prerequisite for successful change management is configuration management. Version control. See, all our project artifacts, charter, business case, plan, all these documents, core baseline, these are all subject to change, right? So we need some kind of a version control. Let's say we got a requirement document, version 1.0. Now tomorrow, a couple of more requirements get approved. So I'm sure you understand we won't go and overwrite the document. We'd like to maintain a history, right? Who made the change? What was the change? When was it made? So we'll come up with another version, version 2.2, keeping the previous version intact. All right. So for a reference, so we need some kind of a version tool for version control, some kind of a process for that. So that is tracking. We need a process now, step-by-step process for change. I'll show you an example of a process. Have a look. Here's a simple 5-step process for change. Yeah. Step number 1 is capture. So capture is like somebody submits a CR form to the project manager. So PM job. PM is going to take it and capture it in a change log. So we would be maintaining a central change log as and when a change is raised, PM would go and capture it there. Then next step, impact analysis. We had been talking about this. So whenever there's a change coming in, we'll do a detailed impact assessment. What impact does it have on time, cost, quality, scope, benefits, all round impact analysis. And then after that, next step is propose. Here in propose step, we'll identify, explore alternates. There may be more than one way to, implement a change. So we explore alternatives, 2, 3, 4 alternatives. We compare them and then select the best one. And the one we feel is the most appropriate one that we're going to propose. Propose to whom, by the way? To the decision maker. Now, who would decide? Next step is decide. Decide is a decision would be taken. Decision is approve or reject as appropriate. And who would decide is we'll have a change control board for that. Okay, so CCB, one moment, change control board. Some people use alternate terms for this. Some people would use the term change advisory board, CAB. Some people call it a simply change authority, CA. PMBOK uses this term though, change control board. So change control board is like a group of people who have been designated as the CCB and empowered to decide changes. So their job is just one thing in a project. They would simply approve or reject changes, right? So this board would be meeting like once in a fortnight and conduct change control meetings, during which they'll take up all changes raised in the last fortnight, and they will take a call on these. Basis all information that is fed by the project manager. They're the decision maker, all groundwork PM would do. And if you wonder who could be part of the board, we could have multiple people. We could have somebody representing the business who can tell us how important that feature is. We could have somebody from implementation side, somebody from design. At times, even sponsor could be part of the board. Varies. So these are likely candidates. Okay, I'll come back. So that step was decide. And last step is implement. Decide is like say the change got approved. Implement is what? Update plans, logs, and have it executed. Yeah. So that's like a simple change control process. Approval levels we already spoke, that CCB. In fact, in some projects they would have multiple tier decision making also. I mean, small changes, let's say of this magnitude, less than 2% of the budget. PM is empowered to decide no escalation needed. Even that could be done. PM could be given some authority to decide on minor changes. But changes of higher magnitude, well, they'll go to CCB. We could define them all. So you remember we have a change management plan, which is a part of the project management plan. So there we can cover all of these, guidelines for change management. Okay. Now, bit on configuration management, version control. A few guidelines. Each time a file is updated, we would assign a new version number, right? We come up with a later version of that. Um, we would like to maintain a document history, include a date time stamp, when the change was made. And for that, we need, so when we say configuration management, look, we need a simple process for that, and we need a tool. There are a lot of configuration management tools available in the market. The choice of tool would depend on the kind of project, but any standard tool you pick up, they would have these basic functionalities available, like built-in version control in it. It would let you do that. Document checkout and check-in. You understand this? So I have to update the document. So I'll check out from the repository, make amendments, and check it in back. It should allow me to do that. User-based document security, access control, and all could be defined. And automatic email notification. This is a good one. Like if some artifact is changing, so there's an automated email that will go out to copy holders of that, notifying that a later version of this document has come. Okay, so that's a bit on configuration management. We good this far? Any questions? Well, last thing, project manager's role in change control. These are some specific responsibilities of the project manager with regard to change control. Let's run through the list. Recognize the change and assess their validity. Hey, what does that mean? Look, I told you, whenever there is a change coming in, you follow this process, I said, right? But an exception to the rule, PM should do a first level screening of the changes. That's PM's responsibility. Screening to mean whenever a change coming in, PM would see, is this change a value add? Is it in line with the project objectives? If not, if it is an unnecessary change, is no value add, then in that case, PM should discourage the change then and there, rather than invoking the detailed process. See, invoking this process means we are spending effort, in impact analysis, exploring options and all. So this should only be done for legitimate changes. So that's one responsibility of PM. Okay, assesses validity. Then perform impact analysis PM job. PM would get it done with the help of the team, right? Create alternatives and present them to the board. So board would decide based on the alternatives and the recommendation of the project manager. Thereafter, obtain CCB's decision. That is, did the board approve or reject it? And if they approved it, then integrate it back to the project plan. That means update the plan to reflect the change. Yeah, other documents. Even communicate. So PM needs to communicate to the stakeholders. These are some changes that got approved and are being hereby implemented. And finally, track implementation also. So PM is going to track, till the closure of the change. Okay, so this is all I had in monitoring. Any questions if you have? Well, in case not, we'll take some questions on this part. I think we got 12 questions, 25 till 37. Yeah, so please try these questions. Hope you're done with the questions. So let's look at the answers. Question 125. Hmm. I'll go with C as in Charlie. Did you get some other answer? Yeah, agree. Feel free to let me know if any other you have.
Option D.
Okay. Why not these? See, when do you remind ground rules? Remind ground rules was is a little harsh, and that I would do when a team when there is indiscipline in the team. So I laid down the ground rules. I communicated that the team, but the team is repeatedly not following that. Then I would remind. So show me, is there any indiscipline in the question? There's none. These guys have a genuine problem. They're from different time zones, hence not able to get together, on a daily scrum. So there is no indiscipline. So that is why Delta is not a good idea. Understand?
Okay.
But C is the safest one. Daily scrum is the responsibility of team. So let them decide where to conduct, how to conduct, when to conduct. So that's very safe option. All right. Okay, then 126 now. Okay, this is a good one. We call such questions as troubleshooting question. So what question says is one of the stakeholders is not happy and complains that increments are not as per their expectations. This is the problem. What should the project manager do? So what's the problem? Let's understand. That means what is problem? Requirement gathering is the problem. So the expectations of this stakeholder has not been factored while creating the product backlog. That's where the requirements are. So what I would do, I will go with Delta. It says facilitate a discussion of this stakeholder with the product owner. So product owner can understand, is the product owner who maintains the backlog, right? So product owner can understand which expectations are not met. And if there are indeed some which are not catered to, then backlog can be updated by the product owner. Any other if you felt was more appropriate?
A.
Invite the stakeholder to the next retrospective. See why this is not correct. I'll tell you. Multiple reasons. Now, the best reason to eliminate this one is execution. Okay, retrospective. So, who are the attendees of retrospectives? Look, who are the participants as per Scrum? The team, Scrum Master, and the product owner. No stakeholders. Stakeholders not allowed to join this. Stay away. So, this is against retrospective. You know, where are stakeholders welcome, by the way? Stakeholders are welcome in one meeting, that is sprint review. Here we welcome stakeholders. All right. So that is why A is not the right answer. Hope you understand this.
Yeah.
Okay. Then I'll take you to 127, where the team has been most productive. Yeah. Okay. This should be easy. What did you answer?
A.
A.
Clearly visible, right? The work remaining has dropped significantly. You see, no other sprint this much is happening. Hope you looked at it this way, right?
Yes.
Okay. Then next one. Where did the team most likely worked on spikes? Okay, what did you answer here?
E. E.
Bravo.
E.
And the reason is simple. See, rule, whichever sprint the team works on spike, that sprint would have a reduced velocity. Hope you understand. Because they spend time on spike, but that doesn't contribute to velocity. We spoke. So B is the one where the velocity is minimal, lowest among, all these sprints. So that's where the team would have most likely worked on spike. Yeah, if you've got a question here, let me know. All right. Then 129 now. Team is delivering at a consistent cadence. Wonderful. So the team is doing a great job. However, stakeholders are not happy. Delivery so far complaining. Okay, here's the problem. Lack of value in delivery. So before I read further, so what is the problem? Product backlog is the problem. or requirement gathering is the problem. That means in the backlog, we have low priority items at the top team is working on. So business value is not there. So there's nothing wrong with the team's performance. Problem is the backlog requirement gathering. So what would be your response? Okay. I would, yeah, I'll go with C. Yeah. Any other? Let me know. And yeah, go ahead. Yeah, see, why did I say? It says product owner to revisit the backlog with input from the stakeholder. Makes sense. The one who is complaining value is not there. We can take inputs and find out which are the high value, features and all. That could be brought into the product backlog. It could be reprioritized. Yeah, do let me know if you answered any other here. I'll be happy to discuss.
Why not B?
B, discuss the team to identify ways to, who said quality is a problem? See, this is what is, you lose marks. The problem in this question is not at all quality. In fact, team is doing excellent quality. The question says, where does the question say? I'll show you. The question says the team is delivering at a consistent cadence. If quality were not up to the mark, they cannot deliver. So this clearly means they are doing right quality, good delivery. So that is why I don't have to look into B.
Okay,
Then
thank
we
you.
have to be very specific, in interpreting. Yeah, any other views on 129? Okay, 130 then. Oh, here quality issues, huh? Lot of quality issues. Product owner is upset. What can the team try? Here I'll go for Delta. No, not Delta. Sorry, Charlie. Yeah, you remember we spoke. These are what? These are all good practices. We spoke about them yesterday. All these have the combined effect of good quality, good execution practices. Any other if you got here, please let me know. Agree? Any other? Okay. Then 131 I'll take you to. He leading a project using Agile. Key stakeholders asked one of the team members to provide a project report. How would you respond? Okay. I'll go with Delta. So the logic we discussed, remember, in Agile, we try to minimize written reporting as much as is possible. Instead, we promote what? Visual communication. So D saying that invite the stakeholder to review the project's information editor. Most likely, whatever information this guy is looking for should be available. We have a variety of information. And just in case it's missing, then we'll be happy to, add to our information editors. Okay. So that's what Delta says. Any other if you found appropriate? Yeah, looks good. Anybody for C by any chance? Why don't I like C is discourage. So, yeah, again, this is okay. Explain this to you. Yeah, D is a better one, of course. 32 then. 3 answers, yeah? Yeah, difficult question. So the team members are not clear. It requires a very systematic approach, which I'll explain. They're not clear on work assignment. Work assignment means the guys are not clear who is doing what, who has been assigned what work. This is one problem. Another problem, and of progress. So progress is also not clear. I mean, what has happened? What's happening? These are the two problems. And question is what the project manager do. Look, when I pick up the answers, the options that I pick up must address one of these problems. These are two problems, remember, not a third one. Work assignment is not clear and progress is not clear.
Oh,
So I will go with A as one of, was somebody saying something? No. Okay. A as one of the answers. I'll explain why. Now think about it. Who assigns work to the team in an agile environment? Nobody assigns, right? It's a self-organizing team, self-managing team. They would assign work to themselves. So if an agile team is not clear about work assignment, that means they're yet to learn self-management. They haven't learned. A self-managing team would never face this issue. That is not being clear of work assignment. So this is how A is one answer. I would help the team to learn to self-manage their work. So this would help address the work assignment problem. Then next, I'll pick up Delta as another answer. See, Delta says what? Use a Kanban board. If you're using a Kanban board, progress is visible. Remember, we saw Kanban board. If the team had been using one, then progress visibility should not have been there. We are clearly captured in the board, what is the progress. So that's how D qualifies as one of the answers. It addresses the second problem. Third one, I'll pick up E, explaining. In daily Scrum, what is the agenda? The team discusses what we accomplished yesterday, what are we going to accomplish today. So progress is discussed in daily Scrum every day. So in other words, if daily Scrum were held in the right way, correct way, right spirit, then progress visibility issue would not have been there. So seems like daily Scrums are not held the right way. So I'll go with review effectiveness of daily Scrum. So this addresses the progress problem. This is how ADE become the right answer. Did you really work it out this way? Any other views? Let me know.
What about C?
C says communicate project vision to the team. How will it help? Will vision tell them what is their work assignment? Will vision tell you what is the progress? None of them. So vision, you remember vision, right? If you want, I will project the slide. One paragraph we saw for a water meter, right? So it's just a one paragraph. What is the use of vision? Vision is used to sell the project. Okay, and here the problem is
Can you
not
speak up a little bit?
sorry.
Your microphone's really quiet.
Oh, is it? Okay. All right. Is it? Okay, fine. One moment. I will do that. Yes. So here's the vision, right? We studied. Vision is what? It's used to sell the project. So what is the problem we have in that question? Problem is of work assignment. So here we don't say, Bob, you do that. John, you work in this task. No, nor is progress written here. So vision is not of no use. If you ask me, where would vision be helpful? When there is stakeholder resistance, there are stakeholders against the project. They don't buy in. There I'll use vision to communicate, showing them that future state. I hope you understand. Let me know any other views. Okay, fair. It was indeed difficult. 33 now. Where does the team need to deploy additional resources? This question is not correct actually. Anyways, the right answer would be
D.
Develop. Nowhere you said, nowhere. That is also making sense actually. If you said nowhere,
Yeah.
why? Okay, see, why can be, in fact, that's what I'm saying. The question is not correct. It meant to make develop as the answer. But you know what? In develop, we are full. All right. There are 5 items, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, while our capacity is 5. But then, is there a bottleneck? We don't know yet. But I think it's still okay, the question is. So if you have to read the question this way, if you were to deploy additional resources, then where? If you read the question this
How
way,
about A?
what is
Its
A? Let me
limit
check
is
out design.
B, but limit is
Design
B,
is
right?
completely incorrect. A is completely incorrect. Why? Look, you have 2 items in design. How many items are there? 2, right? And
Limited.
you already have a bandwidth available. We have just 2 items. There is bandwidth for one more. Why will you deploy resource? There is unutilized bandwidth. So A is not correct. But develop is correct, B, because here you are full. Maybe this item, let me name it as item A in design is done. It has to come here, but it's not able to come because we are full already. So here is where you can consider assigning resource. Nowhere else. In test also, again, you got bandwidth. You're not yet full. Yeah, does that help? Let me know any other views if you have.
No, I quit. This doesn't make sense at all. There's less people, there's less stuff in design you'd put. Yeah, I don't understand the question.
Oh, okay. I'll explain. hold on. You remember a Kanban board, right? Okay,
So
our question is that-
these dots are the resources, or these dots are the jobs?
These are jobs. These are jobs, number of items. Okay, these are like tasks you read them as user stories you read them. These are job. Maybe I made it dirty. One moment. I'll reopen the file and work it out. Okay, you didn't understand the question, right? I'll explain. Very simple. One moment. Yeah, let's come back. It's clean now. Yeah, so these are, let's read them as user stories. I'll use a different color, one moment. So this is like user stories, okay? User story X, user story Y, and so on. These are job. So first of all, get the Kanban board, then we'll go to the question. So these are intermediate stages, design. That's another intermediate stage to develop. This another intermediate stage, which is test. And this is like done. And all these you find these ones, these are job or task or user stories. You look at them this way. So if you now analyze design, what is a limit? Free. So that means we have a capacity of 3 items to be undertaken at a given point in time. And how many items do we have in design right now? Just 2. 2 of them we have. So that means we are not full here yet. We still have a capacity. So there's no need for you to allocate resources here. You have surplus capacity. Okay, we understand that. Then come to develop now. Check it out. In develop, we have a limit of how much? 5 items. We have a limit of that. And how many items are currently going on? 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we are full here. So like, let's say this item in design is already done in design. It has to get to develop, but it's not able to get there because we are full. So develop is where there is a bottleneck. We are stuck. Check out test. No, we have a limit of 4 and there are 3 items. So it's only develop stage where we are full or there's a bottleneck. So if I were to assign resources, hey, why assign resource? I mean, by assigning more resource, I increase my limit to from 5 to 7 or 6. This is where I need to increase my limit. Nowhere else is needed. So by adding resources, I increase my limit. And that's only required in develop. So that is why this is the answer. Do we understand now? Let me know.
Well, it's a bit confusing.
So please let me know what is confusing.
So
No,
test,
yeah.
I mean, 3 jobs running on test, so they can one. I mean, still one is open for test,
Correct.
but uh,
Yeah, Asif, go on.
so I'm just thinking.
I don't
Uh,
understand where you're stuck because this is the easiest thing to understand. Think about it. Okay. How about
Never mind.
others?
I'll give it a thought. I'll just thinking. No worries.
Fair. Still, I insist if somebody has a question on this, I'll be happy to take. Okay, then 134. So burn down chart can be used to monitor which of the following. Very clear, all of them. Remember we spoke about it. You can create burn down chart for a sprint or an iteration. A release I did show you. For the entire project also you can do it. So all of the above. I hope you got it right. Then 135. Yeah, this I'll go with C as in Charlie. I told you this rule a while ago, remember? Whenever we come across a new risk. So what is the first step? Impact analysis. Everything else would follow. Whether to avoid, mitigate, that would be later. Okay, I hope you find it easy. 136 now. I'll go with B as in Bravo. Any other answer? 136. This should be easy. So the functionality the customer had requested earlier was not available then. But with the later upgrade, now it is possible. So what you got to do is you got to inform the customer of the upgrade and that it can now be done. Additionally, what would the impact? I mean, how much more time, money would be needed to implement? The customer can decide. In case you thought some other is better, let me know. Right? Then 37. Here I'll go with A as an alpha. Anybody got a different answer? Anybody for Bravo or any other? See, what happened is you shared an older version of a plan. So it's like the latest version is say version 3.0, but by mistake version 2.0 has been shared. This is what the question says. And how could we prevent that? I would say using a good project management tool. You remember PMIs is an end-to-end project management tool that can let you perform everything, all project management activities, I mean, including version control. So that is how A is the answer. Any other view? All right, done with this. Fair. I'll take it to the last part, which is closer. Small topic. Okay, so closing the project. Not much to learn here. We'll talk about reasons for closure. How could a project close? Could close, I mean. Then typical closure activities, we run through the list. And something called end project report, we generally prepare. Okay. And last thing, I'll touch upon a little bit on transition management, rolling out change. So these are the few things we'll touch upon. So the first thing, typical reasons for closure of a project. These are some, that's anyways common sense. Successfully delivered, that is, everything was done and we closed the project as intended. All right, that's one. Second, need for the project is gone. Hey, can this happen? We started off a project, but then sometime through, the need is gone. A lot of reasons say there is a regulatory change happen, making the project redundant, or there is a merger of the company with another one. So there are, because of such reasons, there are cases where a project is no more required. It has to close. Third, due to changes in requirement during execution is no more feasible. This one to mean like we created a business case, we saw there was good ROI, we started up the project, but then when the detailed requirement were gathered, we only had a high level understanding. We find the ROI is not there. Okay, there's a lot of more costs we need to complete and the return is not in line. So also we would stop it. Funding no longer available is a classic reason. Okay, can and lastly, significant risks make the successful completion of the project impossible. I mean, we find the risk level is very, very high, and there's less probability of succeeding as compared to what we probably initially thought. Again, could the set there is much, much beyond our risk tolerance, let's say. The risk exposure is very, very high. Could also be a reason why we close the project. So these are some common reasons why a project would close. So as part of closure, one of the things we do is we will terminate or close contracts. So if there are certain contracts specifically applicable to our project, these must be settled first before we can close the project. So some typical contract closure activities that would include, it would involve a notification that all work and deliverables were acceptable. So the buyer is going to send this notification to the seller in return. Okay. You update the final records and all results, and we would update OPA big time. In fact, all procurement related documents we update it for the last time, and we'll place them in OPA. We'll make a file and put it in OPA. Like what all things, learnings, what were some good things about the vendor, what were some not so good things about the vendor, other things like invoices, formal communications, inspection audit findings, all of these will archive. They'll go to OPA, right? Can contracts be terminated early termination? I mean, midway. The answer is yes,
Yes.
if allowed for by the contract term. Yeah, I'll add that if allowed for by the contract term. So the contract would clearly lay down, by the way, how could the contract be terminated? Usually that clause is there. Say, for example, we had outsourced testing of the product to a vendor. Okay. Now what happened is the vendor has done 30% of work already. Now all of a sudden, my market intelligence tells me that this product is not going to succeed in the project. So we decided to scrap our project. So do I need the testing anymore? I don't. So here, how can we terminate? I'll send a written communication to the seller. Please all stop all further work and let's terminate the contract. And what will the seller do upon receipt of this notice? The seller will stop the work, prepare a detailed report on the progress made, and an invoice. So note, in this case, I am liable to pay all cost incurred by the vendor in doing the work so far. So that's like early termination. Can happen. Okay, so these are some contract closure activities. Have a look at this. These are typical closure activities that would apply to any kind of a project. Let's run through that list. You update project documents, all project artifacts, we're going to update it for the last time and we'll place it in OPA for future use. Close any open issues and risk. I hope you appreciate we cannot close the project with certain issues, risk remaining open. If there are open items, you must close them, or you pass on the ownership of these items to whoever is going to take handover, say operations, and they agree to own that and take care of them as part of maintenance. If that's the case, okay, or else you must close it. Obtain formal acceptance on the deliverable. So you get a sign off. Okay, so say UAT sign off, let's say. Ensure all costs of the project have been charged. So financial closure also. So PM would send out a communication stating that the financial closure date of this project is 15th August. Anyone who is yet to book any cost to the project can do so by such and such date. Okay. So financial closure, release people and disband other resources also. You know, I mean, physical infrastructure and all you would have obtained, you return them back. And of course, disband the team. Formalize learnings and pass on. We'll compile all lessons we have been documenting all this while, and we'll pass it on for future use. Pass it on to PMO or whoever appropriate. Yeah, they'll take it and use. OPA is updated big time. All our project artifacts we are going to archive in organizational processes set. Transfer project product to operations, maintenance, customer, as the case may be. I mean, the ultimate product, you would hand it over, okay, and pass on the ownership of that to the receiving entity. Measure stakeholder satisfaction. Yeah, very important. So this is a point. End of the project is a good point where you can do a stakeholder satisfaction survey. You know, that's one of the definition of success we spoke, right? Yeah, so that you do. Circulate closure report. So final report and project report, closure report, whatever you call it. It's a very common thing. You would like to report here. I mean, it's like a post-mortem of the project you would do. You would report how the project performed with respect to target. And that's PM to do that. And you would circulate it to all stakeholders. And even they celebrate success. Okay, so these are typical closure activities. Right, good. Final report. Look at the contents of a final report. See, PMBOK uses this term. It could otherwise be termed as closure report. Some people call it. Some people even call it as end project report. Many names given. All the same. Okay, so these are information we would generally include in a final report. Start with a high level summary. So provide a very high level summary of how the project performed before we get to the details. Next, which objectives are met? You know, the objectives we stated in the charter. Here is the point where we are going to measure. Okay, we'll report on each objective, which objective was met to what extent. In fact, that determines how successful the project was. A summary of validation result. I mean, here you include statistics, like how many bugs, issues were identified during UAT, how many deliverables were successfully provided, handover you got. These can be highlighted here. Next, quality objective achievement. Which quality objectives? We had many. Which ones you could achieve? Which ones we could not achieve? And if there were some we could not, what's the reason why could you not achieve those objectives? Include that. On the same lines for time and cost also, like what was the planned schedule baseline? You know, what was the actual schedule, any variance? On the same lines, what was the actual expense versus the cost baseline, any variance, and why? Generally, we would include that. Benefits achieved to date. You remember on the very first day, we spoke, when do benefits accrue in a project? And to that, the answer was some could accrue during the project, some right at the end of the project, some remain for post project as well, right? So at this point in the project, it's very likely that you may have achieved some benefits, if all, may not be all, but some. You report on that. So which benefits have you achieved? Which ones, what are the residual benefits? When can we achieve that? Okay, can be included. And provide a statistics on how many issues risk you successfully addressed in the project. Okay, these are typical contents of a closure report. Good. Any questions this far? Fair. I'll move to the last part now. So this one is on business change management. Do you understand business change management? Like, do not confuse this with change request handling. We just spoke a while ago, a process for handling change requests, you know, capture, do impact analysis. That's very different. I'm talking about business change management, which is rolling out change successfully in the organization. Let's understand it maybe this way. Say my project was to build an order management system. Okay, I took 6 months to build a nice robust order management system on time, within budget, high quality, all good, delivery done. But you know what, still it may happen that we didn't achieve the benefits of the project. You know why? Because people in operations who were to use the system, they were not motivated to use it. So they didn't want a change. They were accustomed to some way of working and they were resistant to change. Or say they wanted, but they were not supported. They struggled to use the new system, so they could not use it. Yeah. So what I'm saying is, it takes a lot more than just developing a great product to ensure that the benefits are met. So this part is what I'm calling as business change management. Now, also I wanted to add, in fact, this change management is not contained, it's not much done at a project level, in fact. So if you go check PMBOK, Prince and all, they don't much speak about change management. This is more talked about if you go and learn some program management there. This is discussed. But still, why am I talking about it a little bit is because this is also identified as one of the topics in the exam. So you need to know a little bit. So I'll speak about this now. So rolling out change. So to successfully do that, yeah, one thing I wanted to add, I said project doesn't cover that, but many projects, this may fall on the plate of the project manager. May, I said, not necessarily. So many times PM is kept out of it. And there are times where PM is also handle this responsibility, in which case you got to do that. Okay. So we would put up a rollout plan. Okay. So a rollout plan could address these aspects. In the rollout plan, we'll describe how the solution is going to be deployed at customer side. Okay. Customer or internal, whatever the case be. Knowledge transfer, how knowledge transfer would be done to the receiving entity, whoever is taking handover. Okay. End user training, it can address that. We got to train the end users so that they're able to use the system. Other than that, any other readiness activities that's required to implement the change. So these are aspects of a rollout plan. Okay, you would prepare such a plan and have a look at this. In any transition, when we switch over to new ways of working, a transition is broadly divided into 3 phases. Look, there's a pre-transition, then there's a transition and a post-transition phase. I'll speak a little bit about each of these phases. I mean, what is it that we perform in these phases? So you understand, see, it's like, say, this is where we are going to switch over to the new ways of working. So that's the transition phase. We cut over, switch over. Now, before we do that, there's a lot of preparatory work to be done before that. That's my pre-transition phase. And then after the transition is enacted here, we would run it for a while. We'll understand that. So that we'll call as the post-transition phase. Okay. So have a look. Certain activities we perform as part of the pre-transition. number one, establish benefit measurement. Hey, this to mean, let's say one of the benefit of that order management system project is orders would be processed 30% faster. All right. Now, I must measure and record what is the current average order processing time. Unless I have recorded, how will I tomorrow claim whether increase has happened or not? That is what is, established benefit measurement. So we'll measure that before the transition and record it. Plan transition means prepare this transition plan. Okay, we saw these things. Of course, it has to be prepared before the transition. Communicate the change, very important. This communicate rather is sell the change. Okay, so this is not a one-time activity. This has to be done several times so as to ensure that people are looking forward to this system, whatever we are building. They are receptive to the change. So this is very important. And you know what? Not all of these is to be done by the project manager. In fact, when we talk about communicate the change, PM is not suited. So this should ideally be done by somebody from that operational area, which is going to receive that change. Meaning, says the marketing team, sales marketing team who would use the system. So who can best do that? A senior manager from marketing or maybe the marketing head itself is more suitable to sell that change. Okay. And then assess readiness for the change. Look, after this, the transition phase would be enacted. So we should check, are we all set for the transition? Yep. I mean, operational people are ready. It's a good time. For example, it's a peak business season, not a good idea to go for a transition at this moment. Okay. So these are some pre-transition activities. Here comes the transition phase. This is where we switch over to the new ways of working. So certain activities you would execute here. Initiate planned transition activities. That is, implement the transition plan. You already planned it. Implement those activities here. One. Next, abandon old practices. This means so people were already using an old order management system. We have to remove access to that. If you don't, then what, people may have a tendency of rolling back to old ways of working. Okay, so that's something we have to do. Establish a support system. You know what? Look, when people start using the new system, in the initial days is when they will struggle most. They will face issues, right? So they need to be supported. If you don't support, they cannot use the new system. So this support could be like maybe you create a temporary help desk or something for a while. So to support these guys to address their issues and all. Okay, that's what this activities could be one of the transition activities. Provide a parallel run. Do you understand parallel run? Parallel run is like we run both the old and new system for a while, say a 2-week period. Yeah, to avoid the risk, just in case the new system doesn't work, we cannot afford the risk of stopping our business, right? So parallel run. So these are some transition activities. And now, once the transition has been enacted, so people have already switched to the new ways of working. That happened here in the transition itself. You then run this post-transition phase for a while. Now, this is very subjective. How long is that while? It depends. So why this is necessary? Look, if you don't, then the benefits may erode. People may switch back. So that's why this phase is important, is required. So what we do here is we ensure that the changes are ingrained. I mean, the change sticks and people do not ever come back to old ways of working. Okay. Support benefit realization until it gathers sufficient momentum. I hope you understand. After the transition has happened, a lot of benefits would start to accrue, right? So can we run this phase till the time all benefits are achieved? That may not be practically possible. It may take a long time. It's not worthwhile. But we'll run this phase till some time, once we start, benefits are being achieved and the benefits are self-sustaining, meaning even if you withdraw, the benefits would be achieved on its own. Okay, then you can stop it. And measure and report on benefits. So that's another thing you would do. So these are some post-transition activities. Well, so that's a little bit I had on closer. Any questions you have, especially on the last part, transition management? Feel free to ask. No, all good.
One second. Where this will be defined, where how this rolling out transition happening, in which part of initiation there was some is there?
Oh, this one. No, you would do this in the planning phase. If you were to prepare this plan, transition plan, if it is applicable to your project, then yes, you would do in the planning phase, not initiation is too early. Planning phase,
Okay.
you'll prepare the plan. Yeah. Implementation is much after, you understand, right?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
Well, any other question? Well, then that brings us to the end of the syllabus. There are 5 questions on this. You may try this. 38 till 43. Yeah. So just 6 questions. Please try them. Right. Hope you're done with the questions. 38. Yeah, here I'll go for A as in alpha. Did you get any other answer? Anybody for delta by any chance?
Yeah, D.
Okay. Then let's understand, what does the phrase raise a change request mean? I'll tell you. Raise a change request means follow that step-by-step process. Fill a CR form, submit to project manager, right? Then that would be impact analysis done, approval would be taken, we studied. No, then you don't do it. You do it for new requirements. But what we have in the question is a defect. The customer has identified a defect. Defect means what? Said forget password feature is not working. So what would you do? Customer has reported. So you say you go fill a change request, we'll see. No way. You will fix the defect. So D is something you do for new requirements, new feature changes, which is what we call as changes. I hope you understand that.
Yeah.
Let me know. Yeah.
Yeah, I got C.
You did see? Escalate. Oh, why would you escalate that? See, I told you, escalate is the extreme case. A defect has been reported. You would fix it. I mean, not even you. You ask your team to fix it, you as a project manager. Why? Give me one good reason why would you escalate that to sponsor?
I just figured as a project manager, you should be transparent with your sponsor.
And this is not being transparent. This is like bothering the sponsor unnecessarily. Transparency is fine, but this is not being transparent. It's a defect. Why bother the sponsor? So you should fix it. And also, I want to add something. This is a very small matter that you should never bother the sponsor with. One, and second, you remember I had been telling you, escalate to sponsor will never be the answer in PMP exam. There'll be 10 questions having this option. Okay, all issues, risk, and issue or a challenge or problem that you come across, you should first try to resolve it. Okay, escalation would be in couple of cases if it is beyond the thresholds, right? Or the matter is beyond your levels of authority to handle. So that's why every issue challenge is up to you to deal. So not a good idea to escalate, right?
Here is
Then what?
another
Yeah, go ahead.
good thing to check. It is online booking system, so it's software. It's not a defect like a breeze, say for example, is a breeze construction defect. That's a huge defect, but it's online booking system. The defect can be fixed easily.
Well, depends. This is subjective. We don't know what is.
Raise,
Say say
so I'm
booking
saying
is not happening. Money is gone. No booking happening. That's a critical issue now. It
no,
depends on
it's
what
not
defect.
about raising a concern to the defect repair. So, the raise a change request for the defect repair. So in this case, that can be solved easily. So D is kind of invalid for that reason. That's what I wanted to say.
No, sorry, not convinced with your reason. So you mean were it a big defect, you would have gone for D. I disagree. D, you would
Big
not go
defect,
for.
but
Oh,
if
B.
it is, but
Okay.
it's not online system, say breeze construction defect. So that's what
Let it
I'm
be. Okay, there is a bridge you're constructing. There's a defect. So fine. So what you do?
see
Answer
there is,
doesn't change.
but when I saw that there is a change request, request the customer to grant and
Gentlemen, raising a change request is something you do for a new piece of requirement. Look, the customer told you in the requirement document, these are 20 features need. This is approved, signed off already. Now, defect is what? Defect is one of the 20 features you build it wrongly. This feature you build wrongly. This one is not working. That's a defect. For this, you will raise a change request. No way. Your customer will be far annoyed if you demand that. But if the customer comes up with a 21st requirement, a new requirement is asking, for this you would go for delta, raise a change request. For
Okay.
defects, you would not raise.
yeah.
For
Okay,
defects,
thanks.
what you do, apologize and fix it. Well, apologize was too much and just add it. Fix
No,
it.
it's
You
okay.
got to fix it.
That's what I do.
Yeah. Okay. Then 39. Here I'll go with B as in Bravo. Anybody said Charlie?
I
I'll
went
explain
Charlie.
in the meanwhile. Yeah, why not Charlie? I'll tell you. See, we studied one thing. I told you whenever there is a change, you would invoke the detailed change control process. True. But I also said another thing. PM would do a first level screening of changes. You remember? So screening of change means if you find this change is not a legitimate change, it's not in line with the objectives. So we would not entertain that change. I mean, for that, following the detailed process is wasting time. We would not do. So the answer lies now in making out that the change in discussion is it a legitimate change, a value add, or an unnecessary change. So if you come to the question, there is enough clue to understand that this is a good example of an unnecessary change. How do I say? Look, project is about to close. That's less important. It is clearly written. If these are not concerned with project objectives, the changes are not concerned. Okay, it's not in line, flimsy. So there is clue to believe that this is an unnecessary change. And that's the reason I won't go for C. What I would do, I would close it right now. That is, use appropriate techniques like convince the team member A, whoever has raised it, to close the change request. So this is what I would do for this change. Could we understand that? But if the change were a value add, is in line with the objectives, then I would have gone for C. Okay. Then 4040. Okay, here I'll go with delta. If you got something else, let me know. So what is happening is project is about to close. A lot of requirements are pending. Scope has been constantly changing, and still the product increment is not meeting the business need. So big time requirement gathering is a problem. You know, the needs of the stakeholders, business needs have not been factored. All right. So what could have prevented this? So what could have prevented D is a nice answer. Creating a prioritized backlog with inputs from stakeholders. So it's very clearly visible that the input of the stakeholder was not taken. So, you know, so if we had involved this guy while we were creating the backlog, then this would not have happened. Their needs would have been captured. That's one. And second, that's one. Second thing is also nice. Inviting them to attend iteration reviews. Yeah, how does that help? See, we're discovering this here at closer towards the end. Had we invited, you know, every sprint 10, we conduct that iteration reviews, every sprint 10. If you had invited this stakeholder to join, this guy would have already pointed out, provided that feedback. We would have discovered it a lot earlier rather than finding it now.
Is an iteration review the same as a retrospect?
No, not at all. Not at all. I'll take you back to the slides. Review is where you provide a demo of the product, while retrospective, no demo. In retrospect, you find out what's, you discuss what's working, what's not working, what improvement to do. So I'll just quickly take you to the slide. Look at review. In the review, what happens, the team is providing a demonstration of the product, and the product owner is going to accept and decline the user stories that were built in the sprint. No feedback, no lessons and all. Come to retrospective. Retrospective is no demo, nothing. What went well, what didn't go well, what have we learned, what improvements to make in the next sprint. Hope you understand clearly. They're very different.
Yeah, okay. I that's why I picked A, because I thought the iteration was a retrospect and the stakeholders don't belong in retrospect.
Oh, okay. Right. So these terms, it will take some time to sink in. Yeah, appearing similar, right? Right. Okay, 141 now. Hey, here I'll go for Bravo. In case you got something else, let me know. So why this one?
One thing,
Yeah, go ahead.
in some previous question, not even question, the PPT, we saw that the lessons learned is the retrospective meeting, right?
In Agile, yes. In predictive, we don't have
So
those
stakeholders are
retrospective.
not part of that.
Stakeholders are not a part of that. Correct, correct. In Agile, agreed. Yeah, as per retrospective, you can see the slide we just opened. You are right. Okay, so in retrospective, stakeholders are not there, right? Here, development team, scrum master, and product owner. Look, this is as per the retrospective of, that we're talking about in Agile in Scrum. But look, if I generalize, I talk about predictive environment and a lessons learned meeting in predictive environment. There, we say, no, everybody join. It's not confined to team, not at all. We invite a wide range of stakeholders for your information.
Okay, so if a question says lessons learned, so we can't say that it is agile.
We can't. And secondly, there's no term of agile mentioned. Now, I'll also add on something. You didn't exactly ask that. Generalize. How do you make out that a question is on agile setting or otherwise? Any
Yeah,
question.
because
And the answer to that, you know how to make out?
the second line is saying David
No,
encouraged.
hold. This second line will come to. I'll just general one. Any question, I'm saying how to make out whether it is agile setup or general. If you see any of the agile terms, sprint, product owner, scrum master, any agile term is seen, then please note it's a agile setting question. If there are no agile terms used, then it is a question like on predictive, like this one. You don't see any of the agile terms. I think it's not there. Yes, ma'am. You wanted to read out the second line. Please go ahead now.
Yeah, for me, second line is making me think this is to be read as an agile.
How, let
it-
me check. David encouraged participation in the meeting and several lessons and feedback were shared by stakeholder. So where does the second line talk about any agile? I don't see which word help it.
Like the feedback mechanism that we say is there in agile.
No, ma'am, you're not getting the point. Feedback is there in any kind of project. And that doesn't make it agile. Lessons and feedback were shared. Feedback is taken any kind of project. That doesn't make it agile. I repeat, to make out agile question or not, agile terminology would be there. Look, let's go to the previous question. Here is written adaptive. That's we can agile. Look at some more questions. Here, see non-agile. We see no terms of agile. Okay, so this is how you would make up. This is not agile. So you have to see this is again not of agile. Backlog, sprint, product owner, any of this is non-agile. It's so very easy to make out. Yeah. So feedback is not a term specific to agile. So no.
But stakeholder in lessons learned meetings, all the stakeholders should be invited, right? Or not?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They should be invited.
But
But in an agile retrospective, no.
yeah, I'm talking about predictive only. But if
Absolutely.
you
The
see
predictive.
only key stakeholders in question. David has invited key stakeholders.
Where are you reading, gentlemen? Are you reading some option? Tell me. But what you said,
No,
I have
in
given my nod.
question, I'm reading in question.
Okay.
In
Reading.
first line,
At the end of
David has
the
invited key stakeholders for lessons learned meeting.
meeting,
David
David.
encouraged participation in the meeting and several lessons. Feedback were shared by the stakeholders.
So
Okay.
what is wrong here? So you tell me, what is your answer? What is wrong?
No, I would say that all the stakeholders would have been invited for that.
And where is that option?
C.
David should have invited the project team only. No, C says otherwise. Don't invite stakeholders.
Okay. Yeah, got it.
Okay, C says just the reverse of what you say.
Yeah.
Okay. Before that, I missed out. Who was it? No. Before you stepped in, is there any question that remains here? Any discussion? Please let me know. So this is simple. Answer is simple. Why B is the right answer is what happened here. David conducted the lessons learned meeting only at the end of the project. And that's not a good idea. I told you when we were studying. I said lessons learned meeting should be held as frequently as is possible. So that is what B makes the right answer. More frequently. Okay.
I
42.
thought about that,
Yeah.
but I thought that where it says that he didn't do any lesson learned meeting before. Does this mean that at the end of the meeting he did that? Or did he mention that he didn't do it
Yes,
before?
it says that. It says that you will
Where?
lose 10 marks for this one. I told you one thing. I told you one thing. Please add the amount of information in the options to the information in the question statement to interpret it. Okay.
Oh.
So the fact that option B says it should have done more frequently. So safe assumption is it wasn't done frequently. It was only done at the end of the project.
I see.
Okay. Yeah.
Good catch.
Okay. Then 42. That's very easy. This is a tacit learning. Perception about someone. Did you get some other answer? We spoke there are two types of learnings, lessons, explicit and knowledge rather. Explicit and tacit. Perception is tacit. Hey, 43 is not a good question. I mean, not fully technically correct, but the best answer from the options available would be C. C is the closest one. In case you got something else, I can discuss. Any other? If you got, let me know.
A.
Okay, why not A? See, question clearly says situation where all customer requirements for the product of the project are satisfied. So there were 80 requirements. You deliver all these 80. So why did you say that customer expectation is exceeded? You didn't exceed. Customer expectation is met. That would be right to say. Exceeded is not correct. You just deliver all that was asked for. So right statement would be customer expectations are met. So that's why not A. Did anybody
Just a
say delta? Yeah.
No, I wanted to ask about 142. What is the difference between tacit and informal? Tacit is implicit, right? So that means
Right.
it's not
And who can tell me what is informal knowledge? There's
like
nothing on earth
it's
framed
not real.
terminology. There is
Yeah.
no such knowledge known as, informal. So knowledge are of two types, tacit and explicit. There is belief and informal are not types of knowledge. Right? These are framed terminology. I told you there'll be some such terms in the exam, terms that do not exist. Don't go for them. Yeah. Any other say here? Very well. So that's all I had. Ladies and gentlemen, we're done with this training. And let me know if you have any questions. Any general questions? If you have, I'll be free. I'll be happy to take them. Yeah.
I have a question about exam.
Yes, please.
See, in a question, they are asked to pick two answers.
Right.
If we pick two answers and one among them only correct.
0 marks, sir.
Zero
Don't
mark.
bother. Yeah. So I hate multiple answer questions. You would also do the same. Okay. Okay. Couple of things I'll tell you. This is done. The recordings. Once again, I hope everybody has the access to recordings. If you don't have the link, tell me. I can again share. The recordings would stay here, as I said, for 1 year. And a couple of things. 1,000 question bank access. I told you we promise we'll give you that. So you will receive an email from me when by mid next week. Okay. So you'll receive an email with the URL, user ID and password. Each of you would receive that. So the questions are there. You will use it. You'll get a 4-month access, by the way. 4 months access, and we have limited 1,000 questions only. Only 1,000 questions are there. Okay. And you can practice them as many times you want in 4 months. And also wanted to add, say, just in case it's already 4 months, your access is expired, you are not done with PMP certification, ping me. I'll extend the access. Okay, no problem with that. That's one thing. The recordings are here. Hope you have the link. Once again, I share it. Just in case you haven't saved it, please save it. And I'll share my contact details with you. One moment. Okay, so that is one.
Any question can we share in the WhatsApp chat in case, or do you that or you don't
You
like?
can No, you can, and people could try. I would also have a look, but yeah, limited is won't be possible to look a lot of questions. But yeah, you more encouraged can share. You can definitely share. All right. And my contact details, I'm putting it in the chat. And another thing for your 35 contact hours certificate, okay? So when to expect that? Expect it by end of coming week, all right? End of week. You should get it. And if you do not get it on time, then you got to contact sales for that. Please note, okay? Please contact sales for that. I mean, sales when I say whoever enrolled you to the program. Okay, I won't be able to directly help. Say you don't hear from sales is not helping, then I'm always there. Okay. So for certificate, please do that. Yeah, fair. Okay, one more thing I got to tell you. Um, um, just a moment. Here I'm giving a link. I'll tell you what it is. Okay, I shared a link in the chat window. Please, everybody, just click on that once and keep it. Keep this link. I'll tell you what it is. These are 178 excellent questions. You won't get questions better than this anywhere in the market, but just 178 limited. So this is like the closest to what PMP questions can be.
Asking
Right?
for access, you need
Yeah, I
access.
know. I said that. You click, I'll give you the access. Just one click, I'll do it, of course, later on. Yeah, so this is the use of this question. So please use it. Okay, it's really very good question. Yeah, just I repeat once again, click on that. A request would come to me and I'll grant access. So the answers are also at the end of the file. It's like that. You have the questions, then you scroll down, the answers are there. Well, that is all I had to share. If you got something to ask, please feel free. If you have any questions. I shared my WhatsApp number. Oh, anyways, we are connected on WhatsApp. I forgot. And my email ID I given you. In case you'd like to connect to me on LinkedIn, you're most welcome. Just share the link. Okay, I'm done. I'll just wait for a few minutes. If somebody has a general question to ask, you're most welcome.
One question. The exam you mentioned is also online. So, I mean, the slot for online giving the exam, are they immediate that we can give? Or I need to be prepared that, okay, now I'm prepared, now should I go ahead with the booking of some slot, something like that?
Yeah, Vaishali, it's like this. Usually there is a queue. I mean, not very long, by the way. If you want a date 5-6 days ahead of today, you should be able to get. But
Okay.
if you want to write the exam tomorrow, day after, I now go for scheduling, I may not find. So I would say a week in advance is good enough. You should schedule.
Okay.
So for
And yeah,
that, you should contact with the sales again.
no. Sales has nothing to do. PM, nobody to contact. So on your PMI dashboard, click on schedule. The slots are
Oh,
visible and you schedule it. Okay.
I see.
Mm.
And also it has a step-by-step process. For example, prepare the experience, like
Yeah.
yearly years experience
See,
or
for
something.
that, I covered you. I'll just quickly project it. You can again go back to the day one recording. I had covered that in great details. Here's the step-by-step process. We
Right.
spend a lot of time on this. You have done this. You will fill the application, then you submit. After your application get approved, you make the payment for the exam. After you made the payment is when you schedule. That's the step, right?
So for
Okay.
that,
Yeah, go ahead.
sorry, for that, who has already made the payment to Tromens? I mean,
Then in that
Tromens.
case, see, there are some people have paid for the exam fee. If you have paid it, then you will get a voucher you have to apply. Those who haven't, they will directly pay to PMI. Nothing
Okay.
different. Okay. Yeah. Okay. There's a question in the chat. Saroja, any recommendation for PMP textbooks for reference material and exam prep? Saroja, to this question, there are many books, but I don't recommend any. I say you just cover the courseware that we studied, the one I shared, the one we covered. That's enough to clear the exam, I tell you. Okay, you don't really need anything else.
So I guess in the portal there is a PMP box 6 or 7. I'm sorry, the first day I just thought we
Which
don't have to
portal?
study that.
Okay.
There's
PMBOK,
a
I
portal
told
that-
you, okay, I get it, I get it. So PMBOK, you may study, no harm, it's optional, but I maintain not required. Why not required is everything from PMBOK that could be examinable. We have already put it in this slide deck, which I shared with
Thank you.
you. Any other question? By the way, in the meantime, just in case you're done, you would like to step out, I won't hold you. I'm there for a few minutes. Some people may have question. So if you're done, you may proceed. All right. You may drop off. I mean, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. It was very nice.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome. Yeah, anybody has a question, I'm there. Please carry on. Thanks, Asif. Thank you, Ankan. Thank you, Gianluca.
Yeah, I got a quick question. Sorry.
Yeah.
In my PMP application, it says provider name and course title.
Yeah, course title.
What's your, do I put your company name or do I put your actual name?
No, it won't be company name. Course title is the name of the training program. And Nick, I would suggest just wait for a while. You will get that in the certificate. It will be written. You'll be issued a 35
Oh, okay.
contractor
That was
certificate.
my next question. Like, are we getting some kind of certificate for the training? But you already answered that.
Yes.
So, okay, I'll wait for all that before I continue here.
Yeah. In the meantime, Abhishek, you said how to download Pimboxes. I have a membership, but I can't see Pimbox 6. Okay, just give me a sec. Wait.